All right. Welcome, everyone, to Campaigns and Conquests. My name is Magenta. I'm here with your host today, Storm, and we are picking up where we left off last night with our character creation. We kind of went over some basics first to begin with last night for anyone who hasn't had a chance to see it. You can still view it. It was live last night, but if you missed out on that, you can still come in and view the recorded live version still available on YouTube for anyone who's interested on the Campaigns and Conquest channels. And if you would like to participate tonight, please speak up in the comment section. We can see those as they come in, and we would be happy to hear from anyone who is listening. If you've got comments, questions, you want to add something, or give us feedback, whatever it is that you have to share, you are welcome to share it with us. And with no further ado, let me introduce our host tonight, Storm. Hi, Storm.
Hello, how's it going today?
Going good. I think you might need to put your glasses on, my friend. You got the squinty face of a person who needs glasses on. Sorry, it happens to me too. So, oh, hey, now we can see your eyes. It looks you look a little more comfortable now too. So, all right. So again, welcome everyone. Last night we left off with the creation of some of our characters. We created a grain smuggler, a legitimate businessman who has a side business in smuggling alcohol to Voda, because alcohol is not allowed in the Kingdom of Voda um, officially. But this particular wealthy merchant is able to get away with smuggling some alcohol in because he has some connections with the priestly caste of Voda, and they are turning a blind eye, kind of, sort of, because it's actually to their benefit. If there is some contraband getting into the country, and then they can catch people using it, then they have a good reason to send them to the embers of the sacred flame, where they can be uh, become converts of zealous converts who may make the trek up there to visit the dragons when the 12 years are up and they need to be satisfied. So that's kind of where we are. We went over some details of these guys, what their kind of life story was about. So I think we can kind of move on from that to the next step of the process, which is you kind of want to have, I'm assuming, Storm, and you can correct me if anything I say here is wrong. As always, jump in and set me straight. But you kind of want to keep a a running kind of some kind of organization for yourself if you're a dungeon master or game master. We've talked about before how we've used Realmworks to create these systems of like connecting people so you know who's connected where. Um, Obviously, you've got two different people in this case in two different countries with a connection and may or may not become something that the players in the game are ever aware of, depending on how they choose to play the story out. But you've got those connections set up for yourself as a dungeon master, a game master, so they're ready when you need them, and you don't have to, scramble at the last minute if your players choose to do the unexpected, which if I'm one of your players, I can tell you for sure it's going to happen a lot, right, Storm?
What's that going to happen? Sorry, I was slightly distracted. What's that? I thought there was a hole in my
Sorry.
computer for a second. I had to go check something out. What did
Oh, there's a hole in your bucket,
I,
dear
I thought?
Liza. No, there. I was just saying, if I'm one of your players, doing the unexpected is going to happen a
Oh
lot.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I don't know if any of my players from Greyhawk are listening tonight. Hopefully they are. I prefer that. I'm not one for choreographing anything or anything like that. So, but yeah, you're gonna get some unexpected directions from certain people and stuff like that. And that's good. So, but you do want to
I'm the one
associate
that comes with the weird solutions too, aren't I? I'm your
sometimes.
problem play.
Yeah.
I am Storm's problem player, aren't I?
Well, you come up with some unique solutions. Sometimes observation. Remember the time that I put there was only one thing in the room and it was overlooked. It couldn't
Yes.
be, and it was a clue, and just go, oh well, that's there, whatever. And
Meanwhile, we're coming up with some crazy creative solutions that are never going
right,
to work.
right,
And the
yeah,
obvious thing is sitting right there in front of us.
yeah, yeah. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, you do, as you say, you do want to make some associations for your NPCs. It helps. It helps keep a plot line together. Now, for people who are very dead set against plot line or go, oh, I don't want railroad or whatever, you still want to make some association notes with your character or non-player characters, so that whatever happens as you go along, and the plot develops. People who are big in agency say we don't want a plot, we want a plot to develop, or we don't want a story on rails. We want the story to happen. We want to be the people who make the story. Well, that's fine, but if you have a lot of contact with a lot of different people, it behooves the DM to record those associations somehow, so that they can be kept straight from uh, episode to episode or session to session. So
Yeah,
I love.
my opinion on that as a player is a bit mixed because I get the idea of having just an open sandbox. But in my mind, when I think open sandbox, what I think is an empty open box of sand, literally, which basically there's nothing fun about that. You go into a sandbox that's just nothing but sand, and it's just you and your hands. Then what? It seems kind of boring to me. I want a sandbox that's got some stuff in it. You know what I mean? Where you're able to move around, but there's some buckets and there's some shovels and there's some forms that you can build a castle out of, or there's something already there, or hidden treasure somewhere in that sandbox that you can dig up. There's a purpose to it as well. And you may not be driven towards that by any hand of God kind of DM who's coming in and driving you in a certain direction, like your cattle being herded by a cowboy or something. I I get the free agency and being able to make decisions and do surprising things, but there also should be some contours to the world, if that makes sense. So you have it's not just a great big blank canvas. Anybody who's ever tried to write something for like a writing project or had an assignment for a creative writing class or something like that, where you're looking at a blank sheet of paper, you'll know what I'm talking about. That blank sheet of paper is intimidating as hell. You don't know what to do. Anything. I mean, it's wide open to whatever you could possibly create, but that's kind of the problem because there's nothing to associate off of. There's nothing to react to. It's just completely blank and it's all coming from you, which puts a big burden on you to think of something interesting, and that can be hard to do sometimes. You get that creative pressure that makes you go, I don't know, what should I write about? I don't know. You can write about anything. Yeah, that's the problem. Give me some parameters. You know? So I kind of like a mix. I like having an open sandbox, but I like having it filled with stuff in it that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple things there. First of all, if you, and I hope you do, you being anybody out there who's listening, have a look at some of the other videos that I've made. Uh, usually they're shorter than the stuff we do here. Um, where I
That's because
talk.
I'm wordy and I talk too much.
Well, I'm
Talk
no
too much.
different because I'm no different. But true enough, but the two of us together. But anyway, I have talked about jargon. That's what the term I use, and terms is the problem. My sandbox, what the etymology of the use of the word sandbox in this context exactly is, I'm not sure, and it may not be the best term. Most of them aren't. I find these terms to be a source of conflict because people don't have there isn't a defined uh, well, meaning to every one of them. I've heard. Let me put it to you this way: I've heard the same thing referred to by three different slang terms, and then watch people argue about it because they didn't realize that they're using two different terms for the same thing. Have you ever been to Minnesota and asked for a Coke or a soda or something? It's a pop. Have you ever been to Wisconsin and asked where the water fountain is? They won't know what the hell you're talking about. They think you want to go jump uh, into a statue or something. It's a bubbler in southeastern Wisconsin. Your drinking fountain? No, it's a bubbler. So uh, sandbox, just like most of these words, tend to obfuscate understanding as opposed to the supposed intent of them, which is to assist understanding. And in my somewhat conspiratorial, if some people want to say it, I don't really think it's a conspiracy. I think it's a well known fact. But because people have said flat out, how can you be a credible designer if you don't know all these words, these slang words? This is kind of a thing you're supposed to know in order to be a credible designer. Which is bullshit. It's just a part of my French, but it is. It's just a way to
It's
create.
gatekeeping.
Exactly. It's gatekeeping, and it doesn't have any good for it. What we're talking about with a sandbox is you don't. It is not. Here's where you start. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. A module, adventure module in D&D is what they used to call it. Where you buy a small soft cover book that had, one of them that I can think of that I really enjoyed was Land Beyond the Magic Mirror, and it was a story, and it had elements of any other story, a beginning, a middle, and end. You know, and you kind of walked. There was choices that you could make to a degree, but it was still a stage, and if you walked off that stage, you ruined the story. So you had to remain within some particular lanes, and that's where
Like a
people got
choose your own adventure book.
sort of, yeah,
Kind
and
of.
that's where people
Yeah.
got the idea to call it a railroad because you're not changing lanes. Once you're on the tracks, you're going to follow those tracks, and those tracks lead you through a story. That's what railroad means when you hear that term, and all it means is that it's an adventure module as opposed to
Some of that
here's
can be fun.
sure some people like it, but other people like the idea of a world where you you can go wherever the hell you want and do whatever you want, and there's even different versions of that. There's what we're creating, which is a fully functional world filled with uh, personalities and population and all of that. Then there's the idea of what they call a hex crawl. A hex crawl sandbox is if you've ever played any type of turn-based or real-time strategy game, they often on a PC they often have what is called fog of war, where you start and you can see a small circle or hex around you, and the only way you're going to find out more is to move your piece, whatever it is, a little worker person, a little scout person on a horse, whatever it is, and it starts to illuminate the rest of the world that you're in as you go through it.
Sounds like that sounds like Heroes of Might and Magic, if anyone ever
Something
played
like that.
that game.
Yeah,
It's very, very much like that. Yeah.
yeah. Most of them are, Warcraft 2, RTS. One of the more famous is what they call that, Red Alert. I can't remember it. I'm so old, but anything like that with a fog of war, and that's what a hex crawl is. It's just being somewhere with a fog of war. You roll a die to determine what the next section that you walk into looks like based on a random roll and brings it up. And people like to play that way. Everybody's improvising at that point. The DM's got to
Right.
improvise. Okay, I've rolled a forest area. Okay, so you're walking through a forest. Is there some sort of monster in it? Then you roll that up and determine that. It's completely randomly generated. Some people enjoy that. But anyway, so there's all these different ways to do it. But what I like is these because, in my opinion, they have the most utility. You can go back to them. And I think that most people agree with me, which is rare because most people usually people don't. But in this case, at least from what I've from what I've
I
experienced,
never agree with you.
well, there you go. So,
No,
but
no,
that,
I'm kidding. We agree a lot of times, actually.
but it does seem that most people are asking for these kinds of worlds. because they can even if they don't use the fully fleshed out world, they'll take pieces of it and graft it into something that they want to use themselves. And it has the most utility because you don't have to play in the entire world. You can take a section of it and make a adventure module or a smaller scenario out of it if you want to, something like that. So
Right. And adventure modules can be character driven too. I've seen that happen where, so the world itself exists. Like for instance, we're creating this world, we're starting to populate it with some characters, we're starting to put some stories together and some friction points that are naturally built into the nature of what these different countries represent, how the people in them live, how they interact with each other. Conflicts that are definitely going to arise between a land that is supporting the birth of dragons and one that is plagued by dragons, uh, you know, constantly attacking them because there's just too many of them. That's going to create some normal friction points that at some point could develop into an all-out war. Could it develop into intrigue or spycraft or any number of things could be going on. You could have traders within the nation of Voda, for instance, who are like, yeah, my brother was a sacrifice to the dragons 5 years ago, and ever since then, I am determined to pull down the the whole system of every this dragon sacrifice because I don't agree with it. Or you could have someone who's just terrified of what would happen if that system went away, because without it, would the dragons just start eating people whenever they wanted to? Is it what they say that this is a necessity, and if you don't do this, it will, the world will no longer be created? Because if you're a believer, that's what you think is going to happen. So, there's always like something right on the edge of happening here. And the players could actually be a tipping point in some cases to make it so that your decision may determine whether or not something happens that could touch off a conflict or an altercation in a certain part of the world.
right. Yep. They're part of the engine, is what it ends up being. The world. Like I
Mhm.
say, I like to have my worlds spinning and have things going on all the time. And that's how you do it. You have, NPCs that are part of driving the scenario or the world's geopolitical situation, if you will, something like that.
Now, here's a question, and I don't know what your answer is going to be in advance here, but do you
If you
think
did, you
that
wouldn't
it's
have asked it.
better? Right, true. That's right. Well, sometimes, to make the show more interesting, I might ask questions I think I know the answer to, but you always tend to surprise me. So, in any case, do you feel like you need to, because obviously when you're starting off a game like this, you're usually probably going to start whatever group of characters, you're going to pick a spot where they start off at, a town somewhere on the map where they're starting. And then from there, they're going to widen out and be able to travel and move. So do you create all of the characters and populations and all of the details for the whole entire world at once ahead of time? Or do you kind of always try to stay a few steps ahead of your characters, but create them as you see where they're going? Like maybe you're not going to spend as much time creating the details for the land of the pirates if they're heading south east to Vitangera or something like that,
No, like I say,
um no.
yeah, no, like I say, I want a fully functional world and I want it to happen complete. Just because you're not there doesn't mean something going on there can't affect where you are. If that
So
rambling sentence makes any sense. I mean, you know what I mean? If
right,
you're standing in Chicago, but your spouse has been, called up to service and duty somewhere on the other side of the globe, say in a war, whatever's happening on the other side of the world is still affecting you. So
right.
uh, that's why I like to have a complete. Plus, I don't want to ever get caught off guard. I've played games with people who go, "I'll fix your wagon." You think you can run something without some sort of preset? We had a guy who was really out to break the concept of an open world. And if I hadn't had everything set up, he would have walked the party off the edge. If you don't make a fully functional globe, a fully functional world, then you have a flat earth, as it were. And you might have a situation where the players can outpace you for a variety of reasons and literally just walk off the edge of the world and run out of space before you can catch up with them. Plus, if you're trying to make things up as they go, it's going no matter who you think. There's a lot of people who think they're super good at this stuff and can be super improvisational um, on the fly. It ain't going to happen every time, and someday you're going to get caught flat-footed if you don't prepare. So there's a big debate
Right.
about preparation versus non-preparation in these kinds of things, and I think it's kind of a I don't want to use profane, but it's kind of an ego thing. So, but
Right.
yeah. So I always make it
I can
first.
see that. You
Yeah,
know what I also think would be interesting too is if you were a game master or dungeon master, you could actually run different groups of people who are players in different areas of the world. You could start one
yeah.
off in the southeast and one off in the northwest, and
Have
then
you been
just see
you been reading
if they
Twitter?
have
Yeah, no,
no
no, it's good. See what happened? What they do?
what
What do you
happened.
mean to see what? Oh, here the funny thing is you bring this up because this is not the first time you've brought something up, and I thought, have you been reading Twitter?
Oh no,
Yeah.
see that's just something I do. Like and I want to touch on this too, but because this happened, and I want to clarify because one of our storylines about the dwarves in the mountain and the light, them not having light to grow their food because of the
All
fairy
that.
lights going out. Yeah. So I was just watching Rings of Power because I don't ever like to watch those when they come out initially, because Amazon likes to trickle out the show, and I hate that. I hate having to wait for a whole nother week for the next episode to come out. I much prefer the way Netflix does it all at once, and you can just watch the whole thing like a really
Sure.
super long movie. But anyway, so I hadn't watched any of the Rings of Power, but little to my knowledge, right at about the very same time that I was coming out with this thing about the dragons, we were talking about it, and Storm held my feet to the fire because I mean, not dragons, sorry, the dwarves who hid in the mountains to avoid the dragons. And Storm really pushed me on the idea because I said, well, they'd have light shafts to get light in, and that's how they grow food and all of that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, how would that really work? Because the dragons could just, breathe fire down the light tubes. And I'm like, well, they're so long, then maybe they couldn't. But he still pushed me for something more realistic, and we came up with the concept of it being um, crystals infused with fairy light that were running out of light, and that's why they had to come up. But that whole discussion happened at the same time that that show was coming on and Rings of Power, and that is one of the plot lines of the story is the dwarves. There's an earthquake, and it causes the light tunnels to collapse, and they're not getting light, and they can't grow their food, and they have about 3 months left, and that's what drives them to no spoilers, never mind. But the point is that that plot line was one that I didn't know was simultaneously happening or had already happened because obviously they wrote it
I've
some
had
time ago.
Sure. I've
Yeah,
had that too. I
but
don't I don't have Amazon or whatever. I don't have any of those to watch any of those shows. In fact, I've had to go over to Magenta's house to watch some of them when I wanted like Andor because I don't have the disposable income. But when I did sit down to watch Andor, I had a similar experience. I'd just written a West End, not just, but I had recently written a West End game Star Wars campaign about uh, the beginnings of the rebellion, kind of a in between, well, anyway, and I sit down and I watch Andor, and I didn't know, and it ends up being it wasn't exactly the same, but the point is that I wrote that campaign because I had said to myself, they're never going to tell this part of the story. They've moved on, you know. to the stuff that at the time they were doing, kind of not prequels but sequels. So I figured they just move past it and they never get to it. And I always wanted to know. So I wrote that out, and then I turned on Andor, and I thought, oh shit, now everybody's going to think I just copied Andor, but I had really written it about a year and a half before. I don't believe that anybody stole any of my ideas or anything like that. It's just one of those things. Like she had,
It's
it
the
just
sea of imagination.
yeah,
I think
and
we're
it's
all connected to the same imagination source, and then we
right.
just tune into it. And so it's not surprising that some of us tune into the same channel sometimes.
Right. And some of
That's
it's
what I think is
like
happening.
sure, it's true. We all get it out of the same air, but and some of it's not that. Well, I don't want to put anybody down, but it's not terribly imaginative. There's only certain when you sit down and you think, how is somebody that lives inside of a mountain going to grow food inside that mountain or a cave or an underground? At some point, you're going to start thinking about, well, how are you going to get light down there because plants need sunlight to grow. So
Right,
it's not some huge unique thing to come up with. Well, somehow there's got to be a hole in this roof, you know. So
right,
it's not like you out imagine somebody if they come up with that, but it is weird how it seems to be timed so close together. And the same thing with mine. I had prisoners involved, and Andor had prisoners involved. But when you're thinking about the Empire and what some of the things they might do, imprisoning political dissidents isn't really that strong of a reach. It's it's not like it came
right.
up with something super unique. But um, but
Yeah.
anyway, yeah,
Mm. And it's not even unique to that genre because that's essentially what's going on with the Embers of the Sacred Flame in our story
yeah,
is that people are being imprisoned in order to carry out the mission of the Kingdom of Oda. So, um, and they're being forced and made to labor for the enterprise, and then eventually the intention is that they're going to be won over and become zealous converts who are would do anything, including sacrifice themselves to the dragon.
right. So it ends up being a lot of it ends up being a sales pitch, a way to make placating these dragons who become ravenous during the breeding process, um, and making it sound like it's some cool thing instead of saying, "Hey, man, we're just kidnapping you and feeding you to a dragon so he doesn't eat us." That's
Right.
that's not a great sales pitch. But if you mask it in this religion, all of a sudden, especially over a long period of time, you can start get people making a tradition and start making it seem like it's some, honorable thing and selfless sacrifice and all that. And then it's easier to work these people. But even after that, you
Right.
still need to, where we've gone with it is you still need to kind of drum business up. So that's why uh, they're letting the boozing slide, even though it's against the tenets of the religion, at least to a
Not a
degree.
new idea. I mean, I kind of borrowed it from our own actual for what we see around us, drugs are something that people get incarcerated for. I mean, how many people ended up in long-term jail sentences for marijuana because, you know, I don't know. The folks who were most likely to smoke it were also most likely
Yeah.
to
So,
disagree with certain things that were going
well,
on during the Nixon administration. And he basically said afterwards it came out, let's put these guys in jail so we we can lock them up and they won't interfere with what we're trying to do. And I don't want to get too political, but I mean that's kind of where what sparked my thought process on it for why these people would be getting sent to the embers of the sacred flame. Plus there's also something too about in their
Nancy
mythology
Reagan
that
fans, please don't send any nasty letters. Or if you do, at least
oh,
address them to her. Sorry,
she
I
had
had to throw that
fans.
in.
She had fans? Did
Oh,
she?
God, here we
I
go.
didn't ever hear that. Okay, anyway.
Woo!
I'm
Oy.
not advocating for any kind of usage of that. I'm just saying, historically speaking, It was a convenient way because you pick something that's popular with a crowd that is not on board with your agenda and you make it illegal. And then suddenly you can round up those people who are against your agenda and put them in a place where you can control everything about their life. So that's what I'm going for there, not any other kind of wider statements. So sorry about that. I try not to cross that line too
There
much,
was no
but
wider statement why I brought up Dick Nixon.
Okay, maybe he's still
Boo!
popular somewhere. I just didn't think anybody really thought highly of him, but I could be wrong. Anyway,
See, and I was going
so
back to something a little, perhaps a little less contentious and more interesting. But you draw from what Lucas. One time, as many of you may have gathered, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, and Lucas
Star Trek's
always
over here.
right. But Lucas always talked about how he drew from old westerns, old samurai movies, some World War II flicks, and just from World War II in general. Uh, the Battle of Hoth had a lot of. He tried to make it a kind of a Battle of the Bulge element to it, um, stuff like that. So I remember watching old Elliot Ness TV shows, with Robert Stack um,
Yeah.
and the whole uh, Al Capone babyface. Now I'm not too far from Chicago, and so there's a little bit of lore that goes with all those, with the Prohibition era and the rum runners and the speakeasies and you know Dillinger came rambling through my. In fact, my uncle, I had an uncle who sat next to a kid in school, very young. I don't remember what grade, but elementary school, if I remember correctly. And John Dillinger, if you're not familiar, it was a fairly dangerous criminal from the 20s and 30s, if I recollect correctly. And and he went rambling through the town that my uncle was growing up in, and had an altercation with the police and killed one of the police. I think he robbed a bank, killed one of the cops that responded. And my uncle said he
Mm.
was in the room when the faculty had to come in and inform his classmate that his father had just been killed in a.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
So
awful.
that's how close. So, and all these guys, when they'd run or they'd go to do Playboy stuff, they usually went to areas in Wisconsin that I'm familiar with. At that point, those areas were even more rural than they are now. And there were kind of these little vacation spots with lakes and stuff like that. They could hide bodies and things like that. So there's a little bit of that lore around here. So I kind of picked
There's
up on it.
bodies in the lakes. There's bodies in the lakes around here. Are you kidding
Oh
me?
yeah, yeah. In fact, where I lived
Oh,
for a while, right across the street, maybe 100 yards, maybe less. I mean, a long time before I was there, but there was bodies that were discovered that the mob had come out. There was more than once that they
yeah.
used the town that I lived in as a place to dump bodies because at that point there was only a couple thousand people there, and they lived
Mm.
on farms and stuff like that. So, anyway, but I envision this area that we're speaking of as being similar to an old Elliot Ness deal where you have these rum runners and the cops trying to stop them and that sort of deal, kind of getting that vibe. But mixing it, I've noticed that a lot of people seem to like to mix genres. So here you have kind of a gangster cop versus robbers type of thing going on, but it's not with Tommy guns and zoot suits. It's it's with more like pirates and the King's men going after them, stuff like that, right?
Well, yeah. And historically, that was valid too. I mean, that's pirates were in some cases, uh, they were kind of plausible deniability for the countries that were at war with each other, and they would set them up as, I mean, they were officially under the flying under the banner of one country or another for their purposes, but they wouldn't run an official flag of that country. They'd run a pirate flag instead, and then they would interfere with trade of another nation, and it was a way of having like a an original Cold War, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, they
They
call them
were really not
privateers. Yeah.
yeah, privateers, but they were part of a larger political struggle between nations of that time during the early ages of taking over, because it wasn't for sure who was going to get possession of this whole new continent that they were taking from the natives who were already on it.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But we have a Magenta's wanting a soapbox tonight a lot.
Sorry, well, they were there. I'm not telling any lies, okay? Just saying. I mean,
Uh,
there were people there, so
we're
but they
having enough
came in
trouble
and they
keeping
wanted to
people
claim that. Okay, okay, sorry.
without upsetting them further
I'm not trying to
with.
upset anyone. I'm really not.
I know, but
Just saying.
it's a
But
yeah.
that's what happened. I mean, the Caribbean and stuff like that, they came in and
For
divvied it up
further
between,
details,
you know.
please see your local library. One of the you want to go to have a little fun with this story instead of bumming people out. Try Sid Meier's Pirates. We both played it. It's an old video game that has,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great. So
Yeah, and it has those concepts in it too. But yeah, it doesn't okay. Um, sorry, I'll
she comes
stop
from the land
talking
of
about
pirates.
Sid.
She lived in the
Who,
lands of
Sid?
pirates on the Bering. You did.
Well, yeah, I did actually. I
Uh,
lived in there was a lot of we had places that were named after one of my favorite restaurants, in fact, was called the Jolly Roger on
yeah.
the Outer Banks. And Blackbeard's treasure was still supposedly somewhere hidden along the Outer Banks, but you know, I
Mhm.
think that was just bogus. I don't think they didn't hang on to their treasure. They spent whatever they got.
They like to party all the time.
Mostly, yeah. And that's
Uh,
why the town had a place named after rum. I mean, a whole town named after rum. So
whoops,
that's a big part of it.
wrong one. Okay. Yeah, yeah. But that's the idea we're going for. And then the what you can do. I mean, that in itself might be an interesting um, subplot or story. One shot that you want to play. Maybe your rum runners or something like that. But you in the area, that's why I put on. Can you see the? Is the technology
Yeah.
working? Can you see it? Okay.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. I always got to verify because. But anyway, you it's a ways away. But if you look at the map, there is a river near the Bost village, and it's not. It would be
Hmm.
silly of them not to take advantage or try to, in that they have access to the lake, which gives them access to the trading routes. They might try, because no doubt they're not getting sold grain given that they're resistance. So they might try to hit one of these things too if they can.
Yeah.
Rate it for grain or something like that, or perhaps rate it for the dragon uh, poop, which is used as fertilizer so that they can maybe plant some of their own crops to try to sustain themselves. So
Right.
you have
Of
that
course,
element.
they're also tied in with the dwarves. Now, the dwarves in Bost Village are they've been living above ground for some time. They're in and out of the mountains. Their homes are in the mountains, but they will forage outside of the mountains for things, fishing in the river, hunting in the mountains, those kinds of things. But when you get to where Elm's Caverns are, that's the area where those dwarves have been underground. And the Deep Forge Lake is their source of water. And then they had the fairy lights were providing their lighting for all of the crops that they would grow. But now those are failing. And so those dwarves are going to be coming up into the surface world for like the first time, and they're looking specifically for fairies to make sure that they can get their crystals recharged with fairy light so that they can continue to grow food and sustain themselves. And they're pretty desperate, but they have no idea. They're like total newbies in the world. They have no idea where anything is. They don't know centuries have passed since they got those fairy lights to begin with. And they don't know if there are any fairies left and or where to find them. They just have a, you know, general idea. But unfortunately for them, the fairies have had to go into hiding because of Brixel's attitude towards magic. So it's going to be quite a challenge for them. I would love to actually, as a player, I would love to play that scenario out as a group of dwarves coming up to the surface for the first time and kind of trying to figure out how to find the solution for my people to survive. You know, I think that would be kind of cool.
Right. And it's so what you see here, what you just described is how these things interweave,
Yeah.
and now you've got a whole nother thing that, issue that has to be resolved and creates tension and is a problem for potential parties, player parties to solve. Um, and there's a mystery
Or
you have to.
potentially
Mm.
or potentially an ally, a group of ready-made allies for your
Oh
players
yeah,
if they
yeah. We
interact
kind
with
of
them correctly.
we
Mhm.
kind of faked going that direction, and then talking about multiple parties. Yeah, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Um, so when I started doing this, talking about this stuff on the internet, I did it on Twitter, and that was my whole idea. Was this? I was and really am in a position where I can't do face to face gaming. Um, and that's going to be the way it is for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, with few exceptions. So, and I don't have a social circle that's filled with people that want to play. I have, Magenta here, and that's about it. So, um, what I used to go to Gen Con when it was in Milwaukee, and even before that when it was in Kenosha. I'm old, but I'm not old enough for Lake Geneva originally. Um, I don't ever remember being at any of those. Uh, but I was at the other ones for the most of them. Anyway, and the Milwaukee especially when it really became a spectacle without getting into a huge thing, but it was some of the best. And one of the things that made it the best is there was no limitations. There was no I can only play till 4 because my mom said so. I can't come to your house today because I don't have the money or I don't have a car or whatever limitations that life can put on your gaming were gone. You had set aside 4 days to go to a place that was nothing but playing games. So you could get the fullest potential out of them. I played a dungeon crawl one year that had some 50 people involved, and I don't remember how many parties, but I imagine 10. I think there were 5 people per party, 10 parties in a giant dungeon. And when I say a giant dungeon, I don't mean just something that was written out on paper or something like that. This was a three-dimensional miniatures dungeon that was so big it had to
Whoa.
be put on a
Big.
floor, and you had to take off your shoes, and there was little marks for where you could step so that you wouldn't crush anything. It was neat.
Wow.
Yeah, really cool. And they could run that again because everybody had set aside the time to do it, and they had uh, this wasn't run just by one dude, or chick or whatever, or person, if you prefer. There was a staff, not a huge staff. I think there was maybe 5 people that were running it so that it would keep going and stuff like that. And I envisioned, especially when COVID hit, and there was a lot of people looking for nothing to do or had nothing to do and was looking for something to do, was to have a kind of large scale gaming over the internet where you had things like this, where you had multiple people playing or multiple parties playing. Um, should everything hold together with Greyhawk, that may occur. There may be at least 2 parties in the same world. So, but that's hard to do with one person. You need to have a staff of people to do it. But yes, you can have multiple uh, parties. That used to be a more regular thing back in the 70s and 80s. It's not as hard to track as you think. And they don't necessarily have to be on the same team. They don't necessarily have to be against each other. They can just be, you know, in different places.
in the
So,
world at the
in
same
the world
time.
at
And
the
they
same
may
time.
not
Yeah.
even realize, like, you could
Right.
be playing, you could be playing in the campaign where you're the dwarves coming out of Aelm's caverns and trying to find a way to solve your problem, with the fairy lights. And then you run into the resistance fighters in Boss Village, and next thing you know, that team is, you can either decide to be adversaries or allies, and
Mhm.
work cooperatively to, so you end up with a larger group. Or you could just not even, engage, maybe just pass, like, two ships passing in the night. You don't even recognize the significance of how your different separate actions are affecting each other,
Right.
because you
Right.
didn't talk to the right NPC, or you didn't discover the mystery of it, or
Exactly.
um, you know,
It's
and
just
and
it.
it's up to players how they want to play, because some players
Yeah.
are just going to play for racking up the monster kills. How many dragon scales can I hang over my bed, and or how
Right.
much treasure can I accumulate, or
Right.
status, or whatever. Other
That,
people are playing because they want to heroically complete noble deeds for the land, or because they've got the backstory of their character is that they're on some mission to right some wrong. Any number of motivations. So depending on what kind of player you are, you'll either discover these things or they'll pass you right by. But they're
that.
there
Hmm. Hmm.
in case you do want to pursue them. They're ready made so that you have that, um
But right.
yeah, that feature to exploit if you want to.
Right. But part of that was why we had alignment in the first place. Are you all about that money? Then you're probably neutral. Are you out to save the world or rescue the damsel or whatever, insert whatever, you know, then you're probably good or lawful. Are you snidely whiplash and finding that the same damsel needs to be tied I'm using references that are probably way too old for everybody here, but you know, um, meanie,
And
good
I'm
guy.
I'm not a big fan of the damsel in distress stories
Well,
myself, actually.
yeah, I know that, but
I'm the damsel with the sword, so back off.
yeah, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right. No, I'm just saying that's
I'm
my
just
preference.
painting an illustration. You know what I'm,
Yeah, I
and
do. I
so
just
it's
messing
just,
with you.
yeah, I know. It's all right. You're supposed to be less of, but and I know, but it's just an analogy, and but the point is that's why you had it, because you had different motivations. You might want to, save the village. You might want to be the guy who's trying to raise the village, or you might be the guy who just wants to get paid. So whatever. But to have those multiple things, and that can be
You
done.
could be Frodo or Sauron, whichever
Right,
one
right,
you prefer,
right,
right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and uh, but the point is I think the natural reaction of most gamers, because it's been ingrained in their heads that everything, that kind of scope is unplayable, and all that crap. You can't play it. It takes too long. It'd be too difficult. Blah, blah, blah. I said this before. Um, when I talk about 50 people playing a dungeon crawl, that was like 1984. So it could be done. Nobody was using any cell phones or anything like that. I watch people coordinate large scale campaigns with multiple parties from, and they were using mail, not email, mail, hand delivered,
Well, that's
actual.
ridiculous.
Yeah, no, and it was because what you had is you had people who were willing to do it, and people that were the central organizers, and you sent your mail to them, and it worked, and it was done. I've got the magazines that document and talk about that are Well, apparently the Internet Archive is being taken down for whatever reason, but if you get there fast, you can read those. They're called Polyhydron Magazine. You can look them up and see that stuff going on. And it was organized by people back then. Now you have the modern conveniences that would make something like that. I mean, I'm sure that talked to the lady that did that, and she was, doing it for the magazine. It was a chore, and it could get stressful, but now, with all the modern amenities, it could be done in a flash. So that kind of large scale gaming where you have one or two parties or maybe even more all in the same world can be a lot of fun and be real easy. You can go to our server and you can join up. Like I've got a group playing in Greyhawk right now. You want to have another group playing in Greyhawk? Find me five more people. Tell me when you want to play, and we'll put you in that same world. Stuff like that. Be fun. Be great. Can do it with wargaming. Can do it with all sorts of things. I'd love to have large scale gaming. It builds a community. There were people at Gen Con that I played these big games with that I would see every year after that. Just playing in that game created a I mean, friendship probably going too long. I didn't call the guy and ask him to move my stuff or go to his wedding or anything like that. But there were people that ended up becoming chums and friends, and you'd see him every year and you go, "Hey, yeah, remember that time we did this and that." It developed relationships. It's very very fun to have that kind of community, and that's what we're trying to build on the Discord server. So yeah,
Yeah. I think online interactions can be a bit different than in person. In some ways, they're easier to do, but in some ways, they're more tenuous. People can drop out of sight online, and you don't know really, are they coming back or did something happen? You never really know. As
true.
opposed to, when you have a more solid, personal connection where you can call somebody up on the phone, or they're, stop by their house if you haven't seen them in a while and check up on them, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So there are some differences as far as how easy it is to organize things online. But I think one of the things that I always try to be mindful of as a player too is that um, if you're going to be in a game, the other players in that game with you are kind of counting on you. So being a good player means being reliable to some
right.
extent and making sure you're communicating. Not everybody can be at every game, and that's okay. People have life events, but you try your best to be able to be there when you can and make
Right.
sure that you communicate with the whoever is the game master, dungeon master, or other players so that everybody knows what to expect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you got to want to do it. Something, like people say, I don't understand. They look at a large scale game. Like I was just showing them a war game. It was fairly big, wasn't that big, but it was fairly big. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I go, we played that stuff all the way through because we wanted to. It was exciting and interesting. It was fun to do. And if you've been told for a long period of time that everything in gaming can be, tedious and cumbersome and uh, complex and take a lot of time, then you're going to look at stuff like that and go, "Oh, there's no way. Why would anybody do that? That's just too big of a bite of food to digest." But it's really not. We didn't look at it that way. We looked at it, hey, how can we do this? Not why can't we do this? It's
Right.
just a matter of motivation. But it can be fun.
Hmm.
In a lot of ways,
I've had Oh,
mhm,
sorry. Since I've had the chance to actually play some games, I have learned that, because I always thought that I would enjoy gaming when I wasn't able to play for years. And then when I finally got the chance to, a lot of it had changed. And one of the major things that I noticed, and I don't know if this was a change or if it was always this way, and I just didn't know because I never really got a chance to be that involved in the story. But one thing that I noticed is apart from when things were new and different, when Dungeons and Dragons were just became big, and a lot of people who never heard of this kind of gaming experience were just starting out with it, is there wasn't a whole lot of controversial topics. There hadn't been like camps that developed that said this is the one true way to play, versus that is the one true way to play.
I swear to
Where they,
God, you're
that kind
reading
of,
Twitter. You're just not telling us.
I do not Twitter. I don't like Twitter.
Or are you
Sorry.
kidding? Yeah. Okay.
Twitter to
Go
me
ahead.
leads
Sorry.
to exactly these kind of misunderstandings that I'm talking about, because it limits the number of characters you can put in there. So you say something that's easily misunderstood, someone takes offense, then the next thing you know, there's a big fight about it, when all along it was just because you didn't have another 160 characters. You know, that's my opinion on Twitter.
It
But
could be.
anyway,
Could be.
um, yeah,
Yep.
I think
True.
that it doesn't lead to the kind of truthful, full-fledged conversation, and you can't tell tone, you can't tell sarcasm. Yeah, I
People
think it
that just go,
leads
I was
to
just being
disagreement.
sarcastic on text. Yeah. I don't know where that came from. That one, and I may sound like a grumbly old man, but I took
You know
speech
what it
class, didn't
is?
you?
Here's what it is. When you're texting in your own mind, because I've actually had this experience and had to go back later and read my own text days later. You have to do it days later or it doesn't show up. But if you go back and read what you wrote days later, it has a different tone. When you're typing, you're thinking in your brain in your own tone, whatever you would be
Sure.
saying or speaking. And the feeling is that that tone is being communicated because it's what your intent was. So you
Right.
know that you were saying it with a snide,
Sure.
snarky tone in your mind
Okay.
when you typed it, but
My
no one
favorite,
else does.
sure, I understand. My favorite is
Yeah.
the person who you'll go, why, you'll say something and they go, why would you think that isn't sarcasm? How can that not be sarcasm? Have you been on Twitter long? Because there's people that say lampshades are talking to them in the middle of the night and all sorts of crazy shit. So
And they
whatever.
mean it. Yeah. No, you never know.
But
I
back
don't
to
know, but
the play by mail. The thing with play by mail is Ma Bell charged a lot of damn money back in the day, but uh, Gary and Dave, Rob will talk about this a lot. They'll talk about how much time they spent on the phone coordinating their games. A handful of people, maybe 10 or 12, but they did a lot of that stuff right over the phone, and
yeah.
that wasn't that rare. Now I read stuff about play by mail, and some of it's from the 50s and 60s, and doing a long distance phone call playing that game. That's crazy. I mean, the money they must have been charging for long distance back in those days. But even in the 70s, you remember, get shut
Yeah.
up. I'm on long. Remember, you you could
Oh
you
yeah.
could play in the room if mom was talking to Judy from down the street about coffee. But if she was talking
Mm.
long distance, you better get your ass out of the room and shut up. Remember, that was a big
I'm
deal
on
because
the
there was
phone. It's
money.
long distance.
Yeah,
Right.
big money.
Everybody be quiet.
Yeah,
Yeah, I do remember that.
but
But
a
I
lot of people
also
did that.
remember
Yeah.
that there was not this whole like there wasn't the innovation was just starting. So there was really just one the whole thing was an innovation, the concept of playing Dungeons and Dragons itself. So nobody felt the need to innovate further. So what that meant is nobody was going, "Oh, your innovation is stupid" at that time, because it was just like,
Well,
"Oh, this is great. I didn't
that's
even
it.
know this was."
Right.
Then it went to, okay, in order to have enough players, you have to compete with other people's ideas of how to play. And
Yeah.
so people started getting aggressive about that. Is
Right.
this is my theory. I could be entirely wrong. I don't know. I've always been adjacent and rather than being actually in the gaming world as much because of my, you know, locale and all of
Sorry,
the
I'm just
history of how I yeah.
readjusting. Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
but at the same time, I think there's some truth to it, because I do remember, um, seeing it when I did get online. There was a time when everybody kind of had was of the same mindset, but then there were new ways to play, and then there were people going, no, that's not real Dungeons and Dragons. And then you had a bunch of gatekeeping coming in.
Right.
Go, this is the only way to play. The different versions, the additions. Once you started coming out with additions, they started becoming like, this one is good and this one is not, and
Well, uh, there's,
a whole lot of
yeah,
arguments about that.
sure.
And it almost seemed as if rather than settling things as far as like having like game playing and winning or losing through a game, you had people who were winning or losing through, oh goodness, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Storm.
Why? What?
Okay,
Yes. What
sorry.
happened? Your
Th-
cat
This
eat the mic?
um yeah, it's a fur baby incident. So sorry about
She
that.
she bite your wire?
No, she just walked all over the keyboard and turned my screen dark, and I didn't know if she disconnected
Oh
me or
yeah.
not.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't think I should be
Cat versus
recording.
internet.
Obviously,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, I should be worshiping her and only her, and that may be
Right.
true.
Well, D&D, you get specific about D&D and how that all happened, but you know, there was a
Other
lot of
gaming
game.
too.
There was a lot of gaming
I don't
before
want.
that. Yeah. And there's a lot of, but you're right as far as the thing. All of that stuff we wanted to consume it. There wasn't this recoiling from everything as far, oh, it's too complicated. It's not this, that, the other thing. We wanted more. And when I would go to small conventions outside of Gen Con, there'd be all these dudes and gals and stuff, and they would have their own stuff, and you wanted to know what they were doing. You wanted to see what the next thing was, and it
Well, it
wasn't
was a
about
badge of honor
it wasn't about
to be
right.
that
Well,
into it too.
it
Yeah,
it
that.
was, yeah, they would come to the thing and they would set up their little booth and they would have their wares and they would everything be for sale because it cost you were driving a 76 Oldsmobile that got 8 miles to the gallon to get to this damn thing. You needed gas money and
Oh,
shit to get, it was expensive and they weren't trying to make a fortune, but they were trying to cover their costs they're trying to make their hobby pay for itself. So you didn't mind that they were charging, but it wasn't corporate or anything like that. It was more like going to a bazaar or a rummage sale or something like that. And everybody had their stuff out,
yeah.
and you just what are you doing? It wasn't about the 4K color glossy photography. It was what's inside these pages. What are the ideas that came out of that head that were on this page? That's what I want to read. That's what I want to know more about. And everybody was just going whatever direction they wanted. Those early conventions were great that way because it was not that. But I think the thing with people, I got this thing about edition wars though, because some people are always trying to be these UN peacekeepers when it comes to edition wars with D&D. But there's a history that,
Are you calling me a peacekeeper?
well, that's what they do. They go,
I
well,
gotta.
if we could stop those kind of arguments. And I go, well, here's the thing: it shouldn't be an argument to the point where you're calling each other dirty names. But to have
Right.
we, I mean, at Gen Con, we didn't have that sort of stuff. Back in the 80s, we didn't have a lot of that. But we go, all those war gamers are weird versus those RPG people, stuff like that. And the thing with D&D is that you have companies that became corporate. I think I told you this before, but I remember guys being really pissed off when they heard that D&D was going to be put on B. Dalton bookshelves for the first
Yeah.
time. They said, that's it. They said, it's done. Once the corporate people, once shareholders start talking about it and all that, it will not be, you know, this was supposed to be an
Right.
underground thing shared by a handful of gamers for gamers, and now you're going to try to sell it to 10-year-olds for Christmas and they'll fuck it all up. And they did in a lot of people's minds. But if you're 10 years younger than me and you didn't have a chance to try 1E because by that time it wasn't the only shelves it was on was some secondhand store, then second edition is going to be your claim to fame. That's going to be what you like. That's what you're going to remember because you weren't listening to, Devo in 1980 or whatever. You were listening to, Will Smith in 1986 or whatever the hell it was, you know, the next generation ahead or however you want to put it. And that's your jam. That's what you remember. That's the good times when you were at the sweet spot that I was at this calendar date. So you get kind
Right.
of that kind of reaction. Yeah, see, B. Dalton 13. And I remember guys just being pissed off. Ah, they're gonna ruin it. It's all commercialized. Um, and I think that to a degree that was somewhat prophetic because the history of TSR and WotC and what happened was really a lot of it was just being corporate greedy mothers, and when you had shareholders involved, now you had to placate them and you had to put out product. Bravo talk about it all the time. He says, I never wanted to see uh, the adventures. I wasn't a fan of the adventure module. I wanted to sell the idea and have the game be the starter kit and then go from there. and then move on to some other design and make some other game. But instead, D&D became this cash cow thing, and they start 80% of their the stuff they put out was adventure modules because that was selling hot, and it was making, that's what the shareholders were happy with.
Mhm.
So they say the finish shelves were, well, I you know I so I mean that's what happened with D&D, is I think it became corporatized. So
Well, yeah, and that does lead to additions. I mean, if you ever question that, all you have to do is look at Microsoft or any other kind of, computer or phones do it too. I
yeah.
work in tech, so I'm very familiar with this, and they will change things
Hmm.
because that's how you sell
Oh,
something
and
new.
Steve O'Lyric.
Well,
Okay, yeah.
why should it, yeah, why should we change from one thing to another? Why should I get rid of my current phone that works perfectly fine and get a new one? Well, the new one has this, that, and the other thing, which is totally different. Or Microsoft coming out and saying, oh, well, Windows 7 is outdated. You got to have Windows 10, or Windows 11 is better, and all of these other things. And then you go and you open up the different versions of the programs like Microsoft Word. Why the hell did they change where you go and find files? The file open, it could have
Yeah,
stayed the same
unnecessary changes just
through
to say they
every
had
single,
changed it.
yeah,
Yeah, right, right. We're kind
because
of
then they can call it, quote, an improvement.
sure.
So in some cases, but you can't sell something new if it doesn't look different. People are like, well, this is just the same thing I bought before. And computer companies and these marketing geniuses, they know, if I upgrade and I spend money to upgrade to a newer version of something, and it doesn't look any different than what it had before, it may actually be different because it might be faster, it might perform better, all of these things that you can't see, but they include those unnecessary changes because you can see them. And unfortunately for me, as someone in tech support, I'm the one who has to go, oh, yeah, they moved that to over here now. Oh, yeah, they changed that from this to this. Well,
Well,
why'd they change that? So that
yeah.
you know you got to upgrade.
Well, you're
Because
right.
other,
You
if it wasn't any different, you wouldn't think they did anything with that last upgrade. So,
okay? Well, all right. We have we've officially done one of our
oh,
sidebar
sorry,
marches down
that's
a.
me again.
I'll
That's
yeah,
my fault again. Sorry.
but reeling it back in. There is the idea of putting more than one party on the map, and that's one of the reasons to reel it back to where we were going with. Do you make a fully functional world or not? Yes, I do, because you might have more than one person on there, or like I said earlier, you might just the party might outpace you for. There's a variety of scenarios where they might actually outpace you, from
Mhm.
anything from being teleported or magically transported somewhere to all sorts of weird ways that all of a sudden you go, oh well, I don't have any content for that place. So and again, there'll be people who are like, wow, there's a guy on Twitter that just never stops thumping his chest about what a great improviser he is. Well, after a while you're going to run out, you'll need more than that. So especially, but
Improvisation is a great talent to have until it gets you in trouble where you improvise something that you can't explain later.
right,
That's where you end up with people who are fans of certain kind of genres where they have sequels that continue on and on, and then it's like you start to notice inconsistencies, like,
right,
well, that doesn't make any sense because of what happened previously,
right. And I hate
so
that
it
kind of
becomes
shit.
a,
I trust me. Now,
yeah, I
there's this
know.
big movement in movie people now to just forget about that stuff. If I want to take a existing IP that I own and completely pervert it and make something that doesn't have anything to do with the other five movies, you should just like that and stop being a fuddy duddy. And that's imagination. No, I had a guy do that with me with the D&D. He says you don't have to have it like he he's the guy that generated the the dragon poop joke. We have dragon poop in the story because I just want to mock this guy who was trying to mock me, and he was saying that you don't need any of that stuff. Everything's mythic, everything's fantasy, everything's magic. You don't have to make any explanations as to why things fit together. They shouldn't fit together. And I said, "You want to make
And
a Jackson Pollock painting?"
technically he's right, but I mean,
Well,
it's
but
not
he's not.
good.
That's the
It's
see.
like,
That's I mean, the thing is that if I put something together that's just a bunch of non-assembled pieces thrown into a pile and say, why does it look like that? Because mythic, because magic, because all that's the equivalent of painting over your rust spots on your body with thick lacquer paint. You haven't really accounted for the inconsistencies. You've just shellacked over them with this
right.
all
Well, and
powerful
let me
word
jump in and say,
magic.
I mean, technically he's right. You can take those shortcuts. You can create something that is slapstick, but eventually people will notice. It becomes where people go, well, why am I doing this again? Because magic. And they start going, okay, yeah, all
It gets
right.
stupid.
Everything is just, it becomes, it's like you might as well just break out the color forms and start,
That's why
you're just playing a, yeah,
I just said yeah, right. You're just throwing thing. I use Jackson Pollock paintings.
right.
That's my analogy.
It's like you could take everything in your refrigerator right now and make a single meal. But when
Right.
you have to eat pickles on your eggs, you're gonna balk at that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's going to be a combination there that just makes you go, oh, yuck.
Hmm.
I shouldn't have mixed that. I mean, it's magic, but
Right.
it's bad magic.
Yeah, it just becomes a well. I mean, it's not even magic at that point. What they're doing is they're using the word magic or fantasy as an excuse for why there's giant inconsistencies, plot holes, or things that don't make sense next to it. They just invoke it as this excuse instead of like what I like to do and what a lot of people, other people talk about is have some verisimilitude where why are the
Oh, you've lost everybody now. No one knows what verisimilitude is.
well, it's
No,
just
no, I'm kidding.
the internal consistency. Why are the dwarves there? There's a story behind it, not just because they magically popped out of the rock like mushrooms, because they're mythic creatures. You know, we basically what I'm doing at this point is rehashing one of the earlier world building conversations. So if you want to
Right.
get deep to save you all a bunch of time and ourselves a bunch of time, if you want to get deeper into that, revert you back to I think that was episode 3
Right.
where we
But
kind of
and
cover this.
it's kind of too, there's different types of people, different styles of gaming. I'm a person who throughout the game I'm going to ask why for everything. Why is that like that? But I was born out of the womb saying why. It's like I think why was my first word ever spoken. Maybe not.
Mhm.
Actually, technically it was uh-oh, but that's yeah. And I'm still bumping into things. Anyway, but the
Yeah,
next word out of my mouth was pretty much the one I said the most was why for all of my life. So I still want to know why. And if something is a certain way, I want to know why it's that way. And if
yeah,
I'm going to behave in a storyline, if I'm playing in a game, the way I'm going to figure out what the purpose of the story is or what I'm supposed to be doing is asking questions like why.
mhm, mhm,
Why did the village just change around us into something different? Why did that happen? It could be this, it could be that. Let's see. Is this the reason why? No, that's not it. If the answer just comes down to, uh, well, just general magic and stuff, I'm
yeah,
gonna be like, oh, okay.
right,
You didn't
right.
put any thought into this. I'm gonna go
Hmm.
somewhere where there's some actual depth to the story.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
everybody is a different type of game player. This is kind of the point that I'm getting at. It's if if somebody wants to play a game where it truly all it requires is an answer of general magic on general principle, fine. Do what makes you happy. But if you're looking for something that makes you feel engaged with the story, I think those details and having a reason behind things is really what makes you feel like you're a part of the world rather than just um, playing a formula.
Hmm.
A repeat, because you could get that from a video game. Let's be honest. I mean, you could get a quick action video game, do a skirmish match on some kind of instant action thing a first person shooter, and you could satisfy that desire because it's just going to randomly generate a map, randomly generate some enemies. You'll click a few buttons, you'll win or you'll lose. And that's boom, that's satisfied. You don't really need to know why you're shooting at the people on the that are it's red versus blue. It doesn't matter. You're just going to go and shoot, shoot, shoot until you either win or die.
Mm-hmm.
Um, versus an adventure story where you're role playing, you're living the adventure.
Right.
So that requires to kick it up a notch. There needs to be a reason for why these things are happening.
Mm-hmm.
And there we go. Anyway, my rant's over now.
um, but I agree. That's why I do it the way I do it. I like to have that kind of connectivity. It generates scenario. Like we said, we already what have we done so far? We've generated potential. Say your imagination can take other places. You might get something else out of the tome that we're going to put with this and do something else with it. But we've generated the possibility of being a smuggler. We've generated the possibility of being a kind of pirate for a cause in the resistance. We've generated a possibility of being a dwarf who's looking just to survive and requires some magical help from a different race that may or may not even exist anymore. So there's a mystery to solve, and there's probably going to have to be some territory that will have to be traveled in order to get that solved for people. We have
There's a hunt. Yeah, they're on
right,
the hunt for
right.
a
We
whole
have
group of people who are trying to hide.
we have political intrigue, and we haven't even finished that with all the with uh, Voda and its neighbors. We
Hmm.
still have to do Massa here. We've done some of it, but not a lot as to what's happening
Masala,
over
yeah.
here. Um, so there's still that. I saw a couple of cities that escaped being named over here. So we should make a decision as to whether they exist. If they do, give them a little bit of story. If you'll see, I don't know how well this little marker works. Can you see that on your
Well, I
screen?
can see. Yeah, I can see. I can't tell. It's kind of small there, but I can't tell if that village right next to Deep Forge Lake, if that's like a town or is that a farm? I can't really see that
They're
well.
all small villages. They all have the icon for
Okay.
small villages. Yeah.
Kind of makes sense. That might be one of the first places that would notice the dwarves coming out. It's probably a human village that's living there on the edge of that lake to fish and,
They're all within technically within the borders of Bristol.
Brixel.
Hmm.
Yeah. Which I imagine Brixel's going to have some legends that people don't want to talk about because to talk about them might be to get you in trouble with the authorities of Brixel as
Hmm.
someone who's trying to,
Hmm. Hmm.
but as with any place that is prohibiting something like that that's from their history, there are going to be people who are like, well, I really shouldn't say, but my grandmother used to tell a story about, so there'll be some other ways that those things will live on in the culture that'll they'll be subsumed into something else, or there'll be some clues there. That is going to require some really in-depth creative storytelling, though, to piece that kind of thing together. That would take a little bit of thought, like how a story changes from what the truth was, which was there was a whole realm of magical people and beings living in Brixel, but they all got pushed out and became um, there was a whole campaign to rid them and wipe them out of the memory of the people, so they would probably live on in fairy tales and things like that. So there would be maybe some auxiliary stories that would be that land's fairy tales in Brixel.
Hmm. Let's all right. Let's come up with a name. Well, first of all, there's three of them. Do we really want to have that many? Maybe we
What?
should. Well, there's one here. There's one here, and there's one here.
It makes sense. Those are all areas where, okay, first there's the lakes, so there would be, reason for there to be a village there because of the um
Hmm.
being able to fish there from the lake, the water, so they'd have, farming. It would be a rich area
Oops.
there. And then also, I think there would be some trade opportunities across the lake with the apothecary farms over there for medicines and goods that would go out to the rest of the world. Um,
Okay.
so I could see that being a big trade route. And then there's that other river that's coming down through Gwinnett Vale that would go into the lake, and there'd be villages there that would also be probably doing some trade of the same kind, sending
Hmm.
it into northern Brixel as well. So
Hmm. Let's
I
come
can
up with
see
some
that.
names.
Okay. Um, I think that there should be like just deep forage shores would be what I would call the one along the lake edge by the edge of the mountains. I mean, seems kind of reasonable that it would be named after the lake that it's
But
adjacent to, right?
here's the thing: they wouldn't refer to it as that's the name that the dwarves would give it. They would have a different name for it.
Oh,
Wouldn't you? You wouldn't want to if you're in a that would be bad for them to do, right?
no, I wouldn't say so. You're forgetting about Bost Village, where there's dwarves living in that mountain north of Bost Village, and where Bost Village is between those mountains. There, those dwarves are live in the mountains and they interact with the people around them. So the name Deep Forge Lake would be known to everyone
Okay, but
because of those dwarves.
here's the difference. The difference between those folks and the ones we've got here is they're not in they're not in Brixel, and
Yeah, that's true.
so that would be a different deal. Now, the 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 backstory with these dwarves is that while they're mountainous people generally, they've internalized into the mountain, be, not just because of the dragons, but also their empire was beaten and fragmented by humans in times previous. So, I would think that a dwarven race, while they're not in, I mean, are they magic? No. So, but would they be would Brixel be any more tolerant of somebody like a dwarf or an elf? You know, based on, I mean,
Probably not. No,
they're kind of imperial,
no.
like like they're real pro human and anti anything else. So,
Right.
uh,
They're suspicious of anything that's not normal. They're like muggles. They're like the Dursleys in Harry Potter.
okay, um, so so
Anything that's not normal, they don't like.
right, yeah, so
Makes them suspicious and fearful.
right. So being the Deep Forge Lake was what the previous empire referred to it as. They would definitely have some other name for. I'm not saying I'm changing the name of Deep Forge Lake, but there's places on the planet that have different names based on who's looking at them. There's a building in Chicago. I'm still calling that some bitch the Sears Tower. I don't know what they call it for now, but they changed the name, but it's still the Sears Tower to me. So, and a lot of other people. So it's that kind of thing. So they would have a different name for us. What I'm saying, um, and I
Kitty,
wouldn't
no, get off my keyboard.
I wouldn't think
Sorry.
that they would they'd want their village that is under the control of a very pro human. They don't want to call it. We're going to call ourselves something dwarfish because we want to get forever hounded by the government that hates dwarves and stuff like that. So I was thinking of having it called something else,
Hmm.
like Fenwater.
Fenwater?
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Or it
right.
would be kind of cold. It's the coldest part of their country. It could be like, Ice Water
Silver
Lake or
Ford.
something like that.
Silver
Huh?
Ford. Silver Ford.
Okay.
And
Sure. Why
they're
not?
calling it that because it has that look of a shiny, the ice gives kind of a shiny sheen that somebody called Silver Ford when it freezes up a little bit.
Sure, because it looks like silver
Sure.
in the wintertime. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So there we go. Let's make sure that that's the right size. Yes. No, no, no. Don't do that. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. There we go. Oof. Touchy little thing. All right. So the next one up the river.
Hmm.
So
Up
Silver
the
Ford,
river without a paddle.
let's finish this on the tome part. So Silver Ford will be a fishing. I think these both. Well, the lake would be silver. It would be fishing and maybe a mining operation as it's on the base of the mountain.
Yes.
Okay. Righty. So we'll call it that small fishing mining town. Okay. Now the next one.
Well, what would the river be called there?
That's a good
You'll need a
question.
name for the river. And
That's
then I
right.
think the other town would be,
What?
Riverside Rest or something like that, maybe.
Okay. What's the name of the river though? Let's come up with a name for the river.
Um, hmm, Greenway, because it's going through all of that forested area. It would be,
Okay. Okay.
or what kind of trees would those be? It could be named after the trees, like
Well, that's a good.
Birchway, if they were all birch trees or oaks or whatever.
Well, I'm. I want this. You know, eh, uh, they're they're not the nicest people when it comes to magic and all. See, here's what I want. I- They seem very Arthurian. You know, very Knights of the Round Table, very lawful, very moral, except for that one thing that if you've got magic, if you use magic or you're a magic person, they will gut you like a fish. They won't. They
But
have this
see,
thing.
they still maintain their internal sense of good because in
Right.
their mind magic is the enemy that threatens all of the whole world's existence, and that
Right.
if they could just stamp it out of the world, the dragons would be gone and everyone's life would be better.
Right.
Meanwhile, their southern neighbors think the opposite, that without the dragons life would cease to exist on
Mm-hmm.
the planet. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they're peachy keen and friendly, except when the magic thing comes up. Then they become kind of mean and very final. They're they will stomp out magic like a rhino stomps out a fire, and they're very aggressive about it. Um,
and it's not a matter of there being a thought process to it. They don't question it. It's just it's a given. Magic is the cause of the problems. Magic is their enemy, and if they're to define themselves as good, it requires them to be opposed to magic.
right,
And to be anything less is to show weakness and to be corrupted. Anyone
right,
who's tempted to show mercy to the magical folks is that's evidence of corruption. They've been bewitched, and that's the only reason they behave that way. Or they're traitors. While you work on that, if you would entertain some things and talk amongst yourselves, folks, I'm going to take a momentary break. I'm a little bit thirsty here, and if I don't get something to drink, I'll be coughing through the rest of the show. So please pardon me for just a moment. I'll be right back.
Okay. Um, so yeah, we'll talk more about the rivers and anything like that. Is anybody got any questions, comments, criticisms, anything like that? Nobody's, according to my ticker. Well, anyway, think what we'll do with the river is I like the idea of calling a river a run in this particular case. Just kind of a neat little deal. It's a little bit strong for a run. I would normally think that run would be more of a kind of a crick or something, but um, I was thinking of that. Um, but this is a good one. I like this. We're going to call it Darkwood Current. And the reason we're going to call it Darkwood Current, I hope I didn't just hit the wrong button. I've done that. I did not. Buttons. The reason we're going to call it that is because I want it to be, I want it to have a kind of foreboding name. Because the point is in general they don't want a lot of people hanging out in this area because of the dwarf issue and the anti magic issue. So that's what's going to go on there. So just kind of give it a vague, icky vibe. Not real icky because they don't want to be. Why is this thing having trouble with its. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. All righty. So we'll work on that. Just the idea is that it's a fairly swift running, not necessarily dangerously swift, but challenging current. Not for swimming. That kind of the idea is kind of keep people from wanting to hang out there as much as possible. That's what we're going for.
What are we going for?
Well, what I did is I called the river Darkwood Current.
Oh,
Currents, plural.
dark
And
darkwood what?
Darkwood
Currents?
Currents. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I like it.
Right. Good. And the point is that it it's apt, but it's also kind of meant to be a little bit off-putting and foreboding. And
Right,
they don't want people to be hanging out there. They don't want people to get merged with the dwarves and stuff like. Some people know they're there. Very few in the government have. It's almost a conspiratorial Area 51 type of vibe that they're like
right,
they've got these ancient records, and they know about the war, and they know that they're there, but they don't want the people to know because it'll corrupt them and all that stuff. So um,
right.
it's not. I mean, there's no force field around it or whatever, but they're trying to keep it the exposure minimal. There's economy that has to be you know they can't ignore the resources, but they don't want people
Right.
vacationing in the area and stuff, so they kind of give it this bad vibe. So I gave
But
it
that
that.
river is that's a good name for the river because it would
Yeah.
be a great like way to like have lumber operations right along the river and then,
Hmm.
move the lumber downriver uh, over the lake and trade with, Bittingera or even Voda. Well, not really Voda so much, but um,
Right.
Canton and Bittingera for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Exactly. So
And these things that I like this because it feels like a real place when you do this, rather than just there's a wood here. It's this wood has a history, it has a purpose, it has people using it for specific reasons, all that kind of stuff.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I don't want sets and decorations. I want pieces to a puzzle that when you put them all together, you have a machine, you have an engine, and that engine is the world turning. And
Right.
that's why I like that. Hmm. So we have
Yeah.
one last village to name, and it's the one at the kind of at the end of the river, right? Oops, gotta get my little pointer to work. Right there.
What would be a good name for a lumberjack kind of town?
Yep, that's a good one. Let's try to get some.
Dexter's Retreat. Sorry. If you know, you know.
Right.
Yeah, not really. That's not really the name we're going with, but I just
No,
thought
I'm
that was
just
funny.
thinking. You got any others?
Mm, hmm. Trying to think.
How about Axbridge? So here's why. It's set
Okay.
Axbridge, and here's why. Because it's set on top of the convergence of a couple of tributaries off the main river, and
Okay.
those tributaries go through the town, like an old, like a lot of French villages have tributaries and rivers that go through them, and it
Right.
has multiple bridges inside the town, and it's for logging mostly. So Axe Bridge.
I like it.
Okay.
Very good.
All righty.
And can we make that a name that is ancient that actually came from the
Ooh,
Dwarven time, but nobody knows it because no one will admit that that's where it came
sure,
from?
because the
So when
dwarves
the
are, yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to stop you. You had more.
No,
Sorry.
because the dwarves' axes go together like, dwarves
Yeah,
and
they
beards do.
right. Exactly. Whoops, so far out. But there we go. So we got those covered. Okay. Yep, yep, yep. All righty. So what's next? Now that we've got that,
What about Tandon over here? Did we ever decide on anything concrete for Tandon,
I don't
the mountain
recall.
range in the south of King Bartov or whatever that is? Neither one of those have we talked about that mountain range at all, really.
Right. No. There's the borders of it.
Uh-huh. Do you have any ideas about those, or does anyone listening want to chime in with any thoughts they may have?
Hmm. I think we're flying solo tonight again. I don't know. We might have to go on our own.
Well, that's okay. I'm thinking Tandon can be a full-fledged kind of mining type of situation. There may be some specific type of metal there that is mine worthy. It's exclusive to Tandon
Um.
that makes it a wealthy kind of country. Um,
Okay.
it's going to need some fortresses and it's going to need some, well, I think that Tandon actually being in proximity to where Boda is doesn't really have to worry about the dragons as much
You would think it would
because
because
those
they
mountains
like
are
mountains.
they do, but they don't live in those mountains. If you look, are much smaller than the other mountains.
Uh
And if they had something in them that maybe was not um, some kind of metal that the dragons would be um, something that would put them off, like maybe they don't like copper or nickel or something like that. I don't know. Not something that would kill them, but they just don't like it.
okay.
Or
Um.
here's an idea. That's the dragon graveyard. When old dragons, when their time has come, they retire to the mountains of Tandon, and and that's where they die. And as when they die, their bones calcify into a specific type of quartz that is mined by the people of Tandon.
Well, these are actually hills. They're just sharp,
Okay,
peaked hills. Um,
right.
and I was thinking that maybe trying this might be interesting. What do you think? Rounding off the tips for a little more variety in terrain and aesthetic.
Sure. Okay. The rolling hills of Tandon. Sure, why not?
Okay, now let's see. Yeah.
And with that being said, then perhaps Tandon is dragon free partly because it's hills and dragons don't like to nest in hills, but also there may be some creatures that kind of discourage them. Something that competes with them, like um,
Let's see.
mm, not giants or anything, because we've already got giants on the other side of the world, and there wouldn't be two sections of them. But hmm, I'm not sure. My
I'm
dragon
thinking.
graveyard was really kind of the one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It could
Think.
still be the dragon graveyard. There's no reason why they wouldn't go to the hills to, I mean, the each one of those hills could be perhaps at the end of their life they dig a place to rest, a final resting place. And then over time their bodies pile up in those kind of hill formations and become a particular type of stone that's just a part as they decompose, they become like a dragon stone. We could even just call it dragon stone
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or dragon ore, something. I don't know.
How, yeah. Calcified, ancient calcified dragon bones as a metal, what, like from weaponry or armor or something like that.
I would say for armor would be a better kind of thing, or like something that produces an alloy that's
Right.
used in other metal creation. Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's
Okay,
not
but
toxic to the dragons, but they don't, you know, they don't hang out there. It's it's unpleasant to them.
okay.
Just like we don't keep the skeletons of our ancestors in our closets to look at once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to put them in a graveyard somewhere. We visit periodically, but I don't expect the dragons would be coming to visit. They would probably just avoid it.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Yep.
And I think it would be cool if this ore had magical properties.
Yeah.
But the Tandonese people are keeping it secret because their neighbors are Brixel and they don't want Brixel coming after them.
So okay, so they fly to the border of Brixel, so because they, I mean, this is kind of, that's the location. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Well, this is bordered with Brixel.
Right. Which is why this ore has magical properties. And there are the elders of Tandon know it, but they keep the information hidden. And here they have a trade route where they send the ore, some of the ore, up that lake. Can you zoom into the top of that lake so I can see the top of it where it goes? So they send it up to the top of that lake into the land of Wheatons. And then Wheatons is the land that has the pirates on the upper coast. So there's a trade route for the
Mm-hmm.
Tandonite. That's what we call it, Tandonite,
Okay.
because it comes from Tandon. Um, and they smuggle it up in secret, and they trade with the Wheatons because there is actually magical properties, healing properties in the stones
Mm-hmm. Okay.
or in the metal, I should say. It has mundane uses too. It can be used in the creation of weapons and things, but it's also a stone that can be, or a metal that can be used in a way that creates magical properties.
So
So they
okay.
have to keep that a closely guarded secret. And they only trade small amounts of it to the town of, or the country of Wheaton.
Mm-hmm. So get this.
And just between us, um, they if you can go up a little bit, go up to the top of the map. Okay, so from Wheaton, it comes up from Tandon. The Tandonite goes up through that river, up through Wheatons, and then it gets smuggled out through with the by the pirates and comes around the upper northern sea, and then down into that area. It goes and gets traded with Stan. There's one particular port on Stan that they trade with.
Hmm.
That's all I'm going to say about it because we don't talk about Stan, except they're trading this rare metal tandonite with Stan
Mm-hmm.
secretly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Get
Cool.
where I'm going with it?
Uh-huh.
And it's making the people of Wheaton and the people of Tandon very wealthy.
Okay.
And Tandon also has the ability to become wealthy due to the fact that they do not have to fight off dragons on a regular basis.
Okay.
Are you on board with that, or what do you think of that?
Right.
The other thing, scroll down a little bit if you don't mind. Scroll down on the map a little bit so we can see Tandon. I want there to be some nice kind of at least one nice large city on the coast of that lake there. And
Okay.
part of the reason for that is because Tandon is protected from dragon attacks and interference, and they have a lake there that is, just where the weather's starting to get better. Anyone who's living in the colder regions in the southern end of the map, it makes Tandon a very popular. Um, they're like the south of France, the southern river, the French Riviera of this world. They are a vacation hotspot. People go to the coast there to soak in the sun, have a great time, in a dragon free environment. Wealthy people have vacation homes there, stuff like that. And I'm going to ask this if you don't mind. I think that King Bard Hilltop, that whole name there, that whole land, I don't like it. Can we just make all of that Tandon, just make that one long country along that area? How do you feel about that?
Okay. I think so.
Because it just seems like it's I don't know. I just and maybe make those hills there as well. They could be larger hills, but they can all be part of the same thing. I just want them all to be one continuous. I don't know, maybe a few little mountains in the top edge of the country, but just extend the rounded mountains up pretty close to it. And the peaks that are there at the northern end of King Barhatov there, that would be, mountain peaks for like there are people who live on that mountain, but it's pretty much dragon free because it's so close to where the dragon graveyard is.
Well, okay. That's a couple of things. First of all,
Okay.
uh, it. I don't know that that would be that close. I think we're going to make a scale that's going to make those fairly distant. Um,
Oh, okay, I see.
so let's keep it. It's even noted. It's even got a name. So
What's
what
it
if we
called?
just it's they're called the Moment Mountains. Okay, so it's not a good name, but it's got a name. So
Momentous. Make them momentous mountains. That's better. Not by
oh.
much, though. Monument mountains. Maybe there are mountains that have monuments to the ancient past, um, to a time before Brixel had its uh, objection to magic, and they had the kind of large statuary to,
Hmm.
honor magic users of the past, and it's kind of like it's like maybe their Mount Rushmore
Yeah, I was just gonna say
monument mountain. Yeah.
there.
Sorry if you guys can you hear my cat? Is she being noisy?
No,
You can't
can't
hear
hear.
her?
No.
Okay. She sounds very loud to me. Just another reminder too. Looks like we have quite a few folks listening in tonight. So if you wanted to comment or get invited up on the mic to speak, to participate. All participation is welcome. So please, uh, feel free to comment. And if you are so inclined and you have something that you really would like to share with everyone, let us know and we can bring you up to be a part of the discussion as well. Also, I feel like this might be a good time to remind everybody that if you ever want to communicate with us, you can reach us by, the comment section below. We do respond to anything you put in there. Also, you can send emails to me at campaignsandconquest.magenta@gmail.com.
All right. So, what should we call the city for?
Love a castle. Well, I love
That's
a castle like
it.
that.
Just I don't know. Just right. What do you think?
Um, well, castle is good. I like having a nice castle there, but Lava is not really the best name.
Okay.
You could change it slightly and it might be okay. Like Levite, Lovite, maybe, or I don't know, something slightly different from Lava.
I'm going to consult the.
The guru of names.
Yes.
Ouch. You sure you can't hear her?
Nope.
So that mountain castle, maybe
How about Glowstone Bastion?
what?
Glowstone Bastion.
Glowstone?
Yes. Or here's
Okay.
a better one. Or how about this? Or there's how about Moonsteel Citadel?
Okay. Sure.
No. Okay. Well, no.
Yeah, Moonsteel. That could be good because that might be the name that they call the steel that is made from the
From the
the ore
ore.
that we just talked about, the dragon ore. Yeah,
Right.
could be used in the production of moon steel. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, what do you think?
I like that. We do need a town right along the shore that would be combination of a port and also a vacation destination. Right, if you'll scroll down a little bit, right by the hills there, the Dragon Graveyard. I think also another rare collection would be some parts of the dragon would, I mean, the bones obviously would calcify and create something that could be used in the production of the moon steel that we're talking about. But I think there should also be some parts of the dragon that would create like maybe the scales of the dragon would create something that's kind of like abalone shell kind of a kind of really strong but beautiful The only thing I can think to describe it would be abalone shell. If you've ever seen that, that's that like rainbow iridescent shell inside of a shell. You know what I'm talking about?
Uh, yeah, baloney. You should share this out on your Twitter.
Why? I have
Not.
hardly any followers on Twitter.
You have,
Why not?
yeah.
Okay, I see. I just don't use it.
Well, just use it for that, for promotional purposes. Just throw it out there.
I may do that for you tomorrow.
We should do it now while we're seeing. It might get people to come and participate.
Okay, I will do that then.
We could even get you
How
to
do I
simulcast on your channel too, your YouTube channel. They allow that now. Would? I should have been on Twitter
um
tonight too.
is there a link that you want to send me that I can just post in my Twitter to direct people to the right place, or
Okie dokie, Smoky.
just send it to me in the private chat if you would, or you could put it in the regular chat, I suppose. Anyone who wants to, in fact, if any of you who are watching now participating, if you want to share a link for promotion to invite people to come and listen and
Do a
participate,
homie
feel
a
free.
solid and share the link.
Oh, all right.
Here it is. Oops, that's the wrong. Here it is.
Whoops.
I mean, that's the right link. It was just in the wrong place. You can see it, but here's for everybody else. If you would be so kind, folks.
Whoops. I we're probably getting sorry. I clicked on it, so we were getting a bit of a echo there.
Echo. Echo. Do, do, do. So let's try. Okay. I called it Risa.
Riza, I like it. Okay.
Are we going to get sued for that? Should we get it? Maybe we should.
Uh yeah, I don't know. Oops. Eesh.
Here's one. I don't know if you'll like it, but we'll try it. How about Nerozina?
What is it?
Nerozina?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's the old English word for paradise.
Okay, I like it.
Now I hear your kitty.
Yeah, she's a talker.
So, what should we do next? You want to keep going? We've gone over 2 hours.
Well, I think that we could go a little bit longer if you're okay with it. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
So I
Ain't
think we're just
nobody
getting into
coming.
some really well, we're starting a nice song, our new territory. I don't want to kind of give up on that too soon, but um can you see I keep trying to scroll down so that I can see down a little bit further on the screen here so that it would show like Tandon.
Let's see
What
what I
about
can
this place that just simply says stirs here at the base of this mountain?
What about it?
Uh, oh, okay. That's actually on the side of Brixel. So that could be named something. Hmm. Oh, it looks like a town with a church and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think of what it could be named. Mm,
How about Shardspire?
Shardspire?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. There we go. I
Do
hear
you
that
hear her
kitty.
now?
Yes.
Yes. She's got a lot she wants to contribute tonight. So um as you can see, everyone is welcome, including the cat, and she's saying something. We don't know what, 'cause I don't speak her language, but I think she's happy to be here. That's what I'm assuming. Ouch! Why are you trying to climb my shoulder like a tree, kitty? She thinks she's a parrot. She will ride around on, like, she'll just sit on my shoulder while I walk around. She just likes that.
Do 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 do.
Is it that wrong that I want to find a place on this map that we can call the Twilight Zone? Bland's Village is a great place to visit, but you might not like the food.
Okay. Right. So with the Neorexia, what is it? Okay, village. What are they doing for fun there? What's the vacation activity?
Well,
And maybe it should be
it's a resort town, like a beachside resort town. Swimming, um, sunbathing, eating good food,
okay.
shopping, and whatever anybody else does on vacation. There's no like theme parks there, if that's what you're asking. That would
No,
get
I'm
invented for a while, but
okay. That's good enough for now. Okay. All right.
your typical beach fair kind of, you know, parks and recreations type of town.
Right, right.
Nice hotels, um, fine eating establishments and bars and things like that.
Hmm.
They do not have a prohibition.
Oh, they got a party down. Yep. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Have musicians, and that would be a town where if you had any members of the party that were bards, they would probably be from there,
Okay.
or they would want to go there to. It's like
Right.
where they would want to go. They probably have their own version of Broadway or something. Who knows?
Hmm.
Or more appropriate to the time, something like a Globe Theater or something. Who knows?
Right.
Ouch.
Okay. There we go.
They should probably have some festivals too, timed with the seasons and that kind of thing. Especially a big party at the beginning of spring, summer season, the tourist season. They invite everybody up for something big and special.
Uh, like not putting baby in the corner.
Well,
Right.
nobody puts baby in the corner. We all know
I
that.
it just sound all of a sudden it sounded like Dirty Dancing, but that's okay. So I moved to Monument
No,
Mountain.
they have.
So
hmm Sorry.
that's okay. I was
Oh,
just messing with
Monument
you.
Mountains are more in. Okay, sorry.
I just moved
They're
them.
more inside of the.
Yeah, I wanted them across the border. So now, on top of the activities in the village and along the lake, they also have um, pilgrimages up to the monuments.
That's a good idea. Yeah, that's another draw. People make pilgrimages up to the monuments.
Hmm.
Classic touristy stuff.
Hmm. Hmm. So, and that leaves the possibility for situations occurring in the mountains. Um, you know, being robbed or whatever. It might be a place to have small adventures. Something goes wrong there, or something like that.
They could have some mountain climbing competitions too, things like that.
Right. Right.
I think there would be in the lower mountains, there
Right.
might be some skiing, that kind of thing for recreational activities.
Hmm. Right.
Can we change the name of Bast Mahalam Braku into just Mahalam?
How
I
about
mean, that just seems like
Mechalekahai Mecahiny Hole?
I'm not sure if I want to go with that, but uh or even Mohall, something other than that really like mile long name, or just Bost is fine.
We already have Bost Village.
Okay. Just name it Mohall. Mohall.
I'm going
Or
with
maybe you can put
Mohallam.
an E after Mohallam. Okay.
Yeah.
Mohallam's fine too.
I'd also want it moved. Let's go up, up, up. Is there actually a village icon even there or not?
I don't see anything there. It's just a name. Maybe you can apply the name to that town that's just called Johntown or something. John Thamaralan's village. Maybe you could name that place Valhallam. That name's just not right. So with these maps that are getting, if you're using anything that is a map maker, this is one of the things that you will sometimes find that it will create odd or just unworkable names that you just have to go through one at a time and change them because they just don't make any sense or they're just too complicated or weird. Oh, I think we might have lost Storm. I am so
I'm
sorry, you
here.
guys. Oh,
Hi.
okay. Oh, your video cut out. Welcome back.
When did it cut
So,
out?
yeah,
Huh?
it just cut out for a second. You just went to a dark screen for a second. So, not sure why that happened.
That's the second time. That's
Mm,
concerning.
yeah, I'm not sure why that's happening. I've been having trouble with my internet here lately too. So, guess I'll be
Did it
calling
say
tech
I was
support tomorrow.
did it say I was
No,
disconnected?
no, the screen just went dark. The image just went away for a little bit, but it came right back.
I'm also a
So,
little bit concerned that maybe my video card's dying.
I don't think that's what it was, but I think it could have been on my end too, that maybe I just couldn't see it because I've been having internet issues for the last 2 days.
Anyway,
So we've got nothing really in stone about the Wheatons, except we did talk about, and I'm pronouncing that Wheatons, that one Outans, because I'm assuming I'm going with like a French pronunciation.
okay,
If you're okay with that.
sure, sure.
And I'm thinking that for that it would be, well, obviously piracy is a big part of it on the northern coast up there. Um, not sure what you're doing with Mohallam there, but I think there might be some. Hmm, what else can we make unique about Wheatons? I see a lot of trees and a lot of rivers. I think they might be, a place where there's a lot of hunting, fur trapping, um, things like that. Maybe like wild game,
Oh, fuck.
pheasant hunting, maybe a sportsman's paradise there. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's some good rivers there. They could also be known for producing like maybe there could be some orchards and things like that in those forests. Bunch of fruit trees because it's starting to get warm in that area, so you could have, grapes and apples and pears, all that kind of stuff. which would be a bit of a luxury for people who live in those colder climes where they can't get, fresh fruit and vegetables and things like that. Are you on board with that?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of a technical issue. Um,
Oh, I'm sorry.
might hold on a minute. Right.
Did you just stick your tongue out at us?
Yeah. So the thing just kind of stopped being responsive. So I can't afford premium equipment, folks. So sometimes this happens. Hopefully this shit hasn't blown up on me.
I don't think it's you because my internet went out too.
No, this is the map program.
Oh, I
That's
got you.
why I say I'm concerned about my video card.
Mhm.
So I had to reload it. Kind of froze up.
Mm, I understand.
So fruits and vegetables, where was that coming from while we're
Fruits,
waiting for
so
this? See,
Wheatons,
every
if you
time.
look at there's a lot of trees there in the Wheatons, and I'm thinking that might be a place where they have a lot of orchards, they have a lot of fruit trees,
Hmm.
apple trees, pears, oranges, I don't know.
There we go. Hopefully.
Fruits and
There we
nuts.
go.
It's the land of fruits and nuts, right?
Why does it?
I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean that's what they produce.
I see. Okay. Well, okay then.
As far as the political nature of Wheatons, I think that they would be basically very mercantile. Um, I think that that's why the piracy is, while technically illegal, is very much tolerated because it brings in a lot of wealth and a lot of opportunities for the government of Wheaton. I think they're kind of a business driven, money driven kind of
It's a big
country.
place.
It's a big place, yeah. So they'd have a wide variety of things. They've got some plains they're working with, probably a little desert area. They've got a lot of trees. They've got good climate, so I think there should be some good farms around those rivers and stuff, um, especially to the east there.
Hey,
Everything working okay for you now?
check it out. Check it out.
What am I checking out? Sorry.
My shitty computer not zooming in good. There, this. See it?
I'm
Oh
not
wait,
sure.
I
Where am I?
got to share it first.
Well, that
Smooth
would be
move.
helpful. Okay.
You see that?
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a little desert with some cacti and stuff. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Makes sense. That's where they make the tequila, right?
Yeah, right. So Mohallam is is kind of a desert um Stanian kind of place. You know what I'm saying? No? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. My internet's going to be cutting in and out. My grandkids are visiting for the weekend and they're doing Roblox and Minecraft and they got 3 tablets running and 2 phones and it's like, my goodness.
Hmm.
I'm lucky I have internet that is technically unlimited internet, but I would be scared to see exactly how many gigabytes a month I use. I think it would be terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
I can't be the only one though.
Right. Um so anyway, yeah, just kind of a Stanian thing if you get where I'm going with that.
Okay.
No.
I was thinking more Arizona, but whatever.
No, I wanted
Oh, don't give me no lip. Sorry, the umpire of lip. That's an interesting name. Maybe it would be pronounced leap. I don't know.
leap of faith. Yeah, I just thought they would have a kind of oh, for the love of God, a kind of Barbary pirate thing going on.
Okay,
Yeah.
that could work.
Hmm. So there's sand dunes. I envisioned this as being a relatively, like you said, sandy kind of Arizona like area.
Right,
Um,
right,
the farms would be close to, like, there would it be probably a little bit more fertile closer to the ocean. Does that make
right. There
sense? I
would be
guess.
some, yeah, I could see there being some fertile areas there. Uh, when it comes to any kind of beach area, typically you're going to have a thin strip of sand, where the waves are crashing all the time. But then, right on the other side of the dunes, you would start having more temperate climate. The moisture comes in, the rains that hit beyond the dunes would create some pretty good fertile land.
Right. Hmm. Hmm. Bum 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 bum. So let's see. Oh, why is this thing so slow?
I want the pirates to be kind of magic world who would be able to um, have gobbled up the things that Brixel was getting rid of. Because when Brixel started cracking down in their history on magic users, there would have been a lot of people trying to smuggle that stuff out of the country, trying to get it out. And they would have probably headed north with it in a lot of cases. Or, I mean, they would have gone wherever they could get out, whatever was easiest at the time. But I think that a lot of it would have ended up in the hands of the pirates. And I was thinking about it when the Dragon's Graveyard, which is in Tandon, um, in addition to the ore that is produced from the calcification of the dragon bones, there would also be those scales, and how they would change to that kind of shimmery type of, if you imagine, abalone shell type of thing. But I would think that that could also be kind of like useful in, something that could give you a far seeing capability.
Well, let's talk about that. Um, why don't you discuss that a little bit or spitball about it? I have to facilitate.
You have to step away for a moment. Okay, I hear you. Um, I'm kind of envisioning in this would be something that kind of looks like a mirror, but it has rainbow streaks like through it, kind of like an abalone shell. And they would have been used in the production of these mirrors that there's only just a few of them left because all of the magic got kind of squashed out when Brixel decided that it was going on its campaign, because it went from being a place with a lot of magic lore, magic capabilities, and to a place that had just wiped all of that out and sought to destroy. So the majority of any magical items, artifacts, or um, leftovers would have been just completely irrevocably destroyed. But what was able to be smuggled out of the country would have ended up in the land of Wheaton and most likely in the hand of the pirates or in the ruling and highly prized, and also definitely kept as a secret because they don't want to get into trouble with Brixel, their southern neighbor. They don't want to be because Brixel has attacked other countries before. Just ask Canton. Um, in their effort to stamp out magic usage. So they could, if they wanted to, pursue attacks on their neighbors to the north as well. But they have kept some of these items for usage for navigation, to kind of help with the pirates in spotting storms that might be coming or avoiding pirate ships or other warships from other countries, that kind of thing. So that would be a big part of what they use them for. And then there would also be, I'm sure, one of these mirrors kept at the capital, Wheaton, for the ruling class there, to be able to kind of peek in on future events. Um, with this, it would be an imperfect picture. You would get maybe a distorted or piecemeal kind of flashes of the future, not necessarily anything so clear cut as like watching a video or something where you could really clearly tell what's going on, but you would get hints of a possible future. And that's what they would use it for. And has given that country a decided advantage. If Brixel ever did decide to make war on Wheaton, they would see it coming to some extent. So that's why they hang on to these things, even though there are risk of provoking Brixel into attacking them. The benefits far outweigh the risks in that case because they could see it coming and prepare for it in a way they wouldn't be able to if they didn't have that. Um, with that being said, too, there is also quite a big tradition with the pirates in looking for anything that may have escaped the purge of Brixel's um, anti-magic campaigns. So that's something that they would be regularly doing, trying to explore places around the world to see if they could find anything that they could use to their advantage, either sell to the highest bidder or
All
use
right.
in their own enterprises. Yeah, so I was just kind of explaining to everybody about the magic mirrors, for lack of a better word. They would not be perfect. They wouldn't give a perfect picture, but would give hints towards the future, could be used for navigation, predicting when enemy attacks might be coming from Brixel, that kind of thing. So, um,
Sorry.
mhm. They also have a lot of, I want to have some museums and places of history that they're keeping in the land of Wheaton. That to be kind of they're scholarly, kind of like, but different from the Canton. The Cantonese are scholarly in a way of trying to produce and a more of a scientific method kind of scholarly. But Wheaton would be more of a preservation of the history, museums and um, libraries full of writings from the past, legends from the past. They collect all of that stuff. And their pirates, of course, are always on the lookout for magical treasures and things that they can get their hands on to preserve from the past. What do you think of that? Are you still with me, Storm?
I am sorry I
Can you
had the
hear me?
mute on.
Yeah.
I had the
Oh,
mute on.
oh, sorry.
I was a sneaky and snacky. Yeah. Do you have any of that written down, or should I be writing that down? Let me
You
write that
should
down.
write that down. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
So the mirrors would look like, you know, abalone shell, but with a silvery mirrored surface. So a little bit reflective. And also with them, they can only be used under moonlight is the key for them to be activated so that you can see into the future. They won't do it in the daylight, which does limit their, they're not going to be, I don't want these, I don't want anyone thinking these are like some all powerful, you just look at this and you can see what's coming. You've got perfect knowledge of the future. They've definitely got their limitations and their flaws. And one is that you can only view them by moonlight. So there's an entire week out of every month or so, or however many days of the new moon on this planet. I don't know. Might be different than on our world, but you wouldn't be able to use them when there wasn't a full moon. Or if you were in a heavily wooded area where you couldn't see, but they're ideal for usage out on the open sea when the moon is full. And I want to amend it to be moonlight or starlight, either one, but they're only usable at night. I don't know if
Okay.
you noticed this, but this lake that's next to Tandon in this mountain range here looks a wee bit like a shark from a certain angle, or like a dolphin jumping out of the water. Do you see what I'm talking about there?
Sorry. I'm
Uh,
hypoglycemic. I had to eat something. Yeah, it
oh,
does
that's
look
all
like
right.
I can see the it looks a little bit like a dolphin with a
Yeah,
mhm,
with a
good
laser
point.
beam on its head.
Freaking laser beams. Yeah. Hmm. So, yeah, that's good. I got that down. So, what else do you think uh we should Wow. The, these grapes come complete with fruit flies.
Ooh, yee, I hate that. Um, on the opposite end of the map, so this is the northwest version down in the southeast corner, the land of Mord, right? Can you zoom down there? Kingdom of Mord, all the way down to the southeast corner of the map.
You mean this? Yeah, this was the
Kingdom of
place.
Mord.
Yeah, we had an idea to make this a very frozen kind of uh, area. There was a whole deal that we made with that fella that was coming on the streams. I forget. Remember,
Right. Yes.
we had a whole deal.
Yeah, and they're with the steam, they're using steam power and actually enslaving beings of steam wraiths in
Yes.
this land,
Yeah, we had a whole.
which is appropriate to the kingdom of Mord. Mord meaning kind of, I think that means like death or um, in some languages anyway. It makes me think of death. I don't know why. Or Mordor. But anyway, yeah, it's
Cue
a
the
place
Zepp.
where there's. Hmm?
Every time I hear Mordor, I think about cue the Zeppelin.
Right. So did you write down any of that stuff with the details about the steam race? So they're harnessing them to make kind of like early steam engine locomotion, which may even get them, you know, powering their ships and stuff for travel along the ocean there. But that's they have those kind of like Iceland, you know, with the what do you call them? Why can't I ever think of the name of this? You had to tell me the last time. Geysers.
Hmm.
So that would be a land of a lot of black rock. There would be some very rich and fertile areas, you know, hot springs and things like that, but places where you've got a lot of steam coming up, a lot of snow, and then ironically green patches mixed in with all the snow where those steam is coming up. And I would think too that they would have some buildings where they would take advantage of those steam areas too, to trap the steam and to make, like, you know, basically terrariums, you know, where they're growing um food inside of them, and you know, heating them for people to live in, that kind of thing. So Storm, what are you thinking?
Sorry, I was on mute again. Doof.
Sorry about that.
Doofy. What we have was that. Um, all right. We have the Maha, which are very. They're like ice zombies. They're humanoid
Right.
but very creepy looking. Um, they make, like you say, steam weapons, steam machines that use a thing called a steam method, which is kind of like a spirit that's
A
being,
steam wraith.
yes, that's being entrapped in there. Um, and underground, uh, there is lizards that live in tunnels, and they're heat sucking lizards. So they seep a lot of the heat out of the ground. That's why you have this kind of moonish, cold, rocky area. A lot of it's like a winter wasteland. We kind of were going for the wall in Game of Thrones, that kind of look.
Right. And kind of Iceland too. I was
Yeah,
thinking a lot of
right.
Iceland
That's
with
good.
the
That's good. Sorry, guys, I can't stop with these grapes.
Okay, so we've taken care of that. Can you zoom out the map so I can take a look at I want to kind of make sure that we've got every continent, that we've got every land has something about it that we're working with here so that we can get.
Let's do it. Let's see. So there's this one. There's still several areas that we haven't even touched.
If you can make a list on that we can have to work with, because I want to make sure that we've touched on those areas. I know
Hmm
we've kind of gotten a start a little bit on the fur. Sorry, I can't think. Fabur,
hmm
the
hmm
kingdom of Fabur, but there's a lot more that we can do. And then there's Sletham to the south east of that.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
So sorry, you guys. I think we're pushing it past our physical limits. It's pretty late here, so and we've been doing this. We're coming up on 3 hours of this, so which obviously is a long time to be going through all of this and sitting in one spot. So we may need to wrap it up here in a little bit. But I just want to make sure that we're on board with the areas that we've covered. We've got basic stories for most of these lands, and then we're going to continue on with the populating. Um, we did talk quite a bit at the beginning of this show about how to create characters, which is kind of what this one was about. Um, and having the land and the contours of what the land is like really kind of helps you to think of what certain characters are. Like we have our grain merchant, who's also slash smuggler, who's smuggling alcoholic spirits into the kingdom of Voda, um, while the kingdom of Voda officials kind of uh, look the other way accidentally on purpose and let him do it so that they can use that to kind of find people who are, breaking the law and consuming those spirits and then send them off to the embers of the flame. Um, and then we also have our um, enforcer of that, who's basically the guy the customs official who's responsible for catching those people who are consuming those illegal alcoholic spirits. Our Elliot Ness kind of guy who's going after that. Um, and that kind of thing comes out of what the story it fits with the nature of those lands. So I would expect some of the other areas we're going to have some leadership where um, we're going to have to start thinking of like political leaders as well, like what kind of leadership would these countries have as far as governmental structure. Voda is going to be definitely a theocracy. Vitangera is not a theocracy. I think they're going to have, if you haven't written this down already, Storm, for our future reference, they would have more of, and then Brixel would be the same. There would be an inheritance method there. Um, I think the Wetons would be a democracy, but a pay to play democracy, where basically the wealthy control the country there because they're the ones who can, you know. Um, and because it's that's what that country is all about. Everybody is out to kind of they're like the Ferengi of the bunch. If you're familiar with Star Trek, you would understand that. But they're very mercantile. So you're going to probably have a lot of smugglers, probably a lot of insider competition too. So even the guy who's in charge is not really in charge because there's always somebody nipping at his heels, you know. So he can't really count on the aid and assistance of his fellow countrymen at every turn, including within his own government, because of the tendency for them to be looking to replace him any chance they can. So that's going to be a bit of an unstable situation there. And you're going to have probably a lot of intrigue and spying and money changing hands to gain power or um, to bypass whatever laws or regulations are appear to be in place. If you have the right amount of money, you can always bypass what the law says to get the job done. Um, then of course we've got Tandon, which is, really making the money off of the bones of the dragons in the dragon graveyard there, and enjoying the fact that because they're the dragon graveyard, the dragons don't hang out there, so they're like the one place in the area where they don't have to worry about dragon attacks. They have the luxury of being able to relax and enjoy their coastline, enjoy their mountains. Um, they're starting to get a little bit warmer than some of the southern regions there, which are much colder, and so they benefit from a lot of tourism.
Right.
So areas we still need to deal with is going to be all the way to the western side here, on the western side of these mountains, this huge mountain range. We don't really have anything for that area. So if you want to put that on your list of ones to tackle next time. Anybody who's a regular viewer, if you've got ideas, something you've always wanted to see in a game that you haven't seen portrayed yet, um, please feel free to, drop us a line or put it in the comments, make a suggestion. We're going to continue on with having these world building sessions. So, um, welcome to request the mic to come on up and talk if you'd like to share any ideas that you have, or just any feedback on how you think we're doing so far would be appreciated as well. We also need to expand on the Kingdom of Lip over here, I think, or Empire of Lip over on the eastern side of the map here. And I'm not sure what that Wick Iraman name, I can't even read it. It's just to the east of Wittenjera.
Right.
Wick Aramana, that name needs to be changed because that just isn't working for me.
Okay. Hmm. What should we do?
Why don't you just call it Manu Paw? Take
My
out the
new
Wick
paw.
ire out of Manu, Manew, Manu Paw. Mhm. You could change it to something else. You could call it Wick Paw. Take the Manu out. I don't know. That's just even hard to say. Ire Manu.
We'll go with what? Oh shit. We'll go with that
Well, we're
for
not
now.
going to call
That's
it shit. We're not going to
well, I might. It's
Wick Paw. Okay.
that's subject to change.
Okay. Wickpaw. Yeah, see, it sounds kind of weird to me. Wickpaw has a farm of kill in the land. That's interesting. Seems a
Right
bit
on.
direct. I think that name will get changed. And then there's this Empire of John all the way on John Har. I, I don't think we're going to have an Empire of John Har. That needs a different name.
Jebhadar.
Jebhadar? No, I don't think so.
Uh, Empire John Wick.
Yeah, that could be interesting.
Uh, let's see here. What's this one then? Oh, that's that. Okay. Yeah. All righty. Let's make it something else. Uh, Okay, fixed it. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Empire of Hebdar. Okay, works for me. And then the Empire of Lip. What?
Then we have this
Don't
other
give
one.
me no lip about that.
Here's one that's just called. It's like got an abbreviation EASS.
Just take that out. That doesn't even look like it needs to be there. I think that could be part of what's well, because that's all part of Faber, right?
Yeah, we're just let's do this. It's being fixed. Hopefully. There. Now it's all one big
Mhm.
China looking thing. Let's call it China. There. There you go.
Sounds good. And can you take out here where it's this Kingdom of Fade, Gressibacarlington? Can you change that out and just make it Kingdom of Fade
I will
or the
change
Faded
it.
Kingdom? The Faded
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Kingdom.
yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
could be interesting.
I like that.
The
I'm going with
Faded
that. Yeah,
Faded Kingdom.
yeah.
In fact, I think that that's going to be one of those. You know how like they used to have all those legends back in the a long time ago, in the age of the explorers, where they would be like looking for a lost village or a lost country or lost kingdom or something like that. A fabled lost city that's full of riches and gold and jewels and all that. I think the Fated Kingdom would be a place like that.
Okay.
So it's just nothing but a land of ruins, and it's gone to siege, kind of like after the monkeys took or the apes took over in Planet of the Apes, it's that kind of environment.
Okay.
That would be a great place for any players that you had who wanted to come in and just do like a that would be your like dungeon crawl kind of hex crawl kind of place. You know what I mean? You could just go through there in the Fated Kingdom and find surprise after surprise. Or kind of like in Willow when they have to go after the kingdom of uh Tyrelise, or whatever it was called, the one that was full of trolls, the one that Alora Dannon was supposed to inherit, kind of similar to that. An abandoned kingdom, faded with the passage of time. Wow, that name. A Varvin Stokenholm? A Varvin Stokenholm? Wow. Do you think you could make that a little longer for me?
It's going to be Farfignugan.
Now I want a Fig Newton.
I used to love me a Fig Newton.
They used to be different though. I don't think they taste as good as they used to.
That is true. Most of those things have changed and do not. Twinkies and ding dongs also have lost their cool taste. It's true.
Hmm. I do like this one though, Village of Stintertuten. Stintertootin. It just sounds, I don't know. But this Village of John Lexington Toy Dareeming, no, no way.
Bro, give me my legs back. Kitty.
What?
I said
Oh, is she?
kid.
Could you hear her again?
Yeah.
She's a little talker. She's challenging me for my position as co-host. She's trying to take over, aren't you, baby? Sometimes I think she makes more sense than I do.
Mm-hmm.
You can make that Village of John Lexer Toy Dareeming. Toy Dareeming. Oh my God. Okay. Let's take that out and just make it Village of Lexant. Lexant. Just take the rest of it out. This is a anybody tuning in. I know it seems like this is quite a detailed process that we're going through. Um, it really comes down to, as from what I've seen since we've been doing the building series, everything really comes down to one section at a time and making decisions, coming up with creativity, and then keeping track of it is probably the next part, because you'll have a lot of ideas that will just come to you sometimes pretty quickly. And then if you're not keeping track and writing those ideas down, you end up with, you know, your best ideas are sometimes the ones you forgot you even had. So,
Hmm. Okay.
so Village of Lexington is the next one in the Kingdom of Stone, just north of Stintertooten. Just take out the John and everything after the T in Lexington.
Okay.
That looks much better. For some reason, these automated maps and name generators just they like to just make like 10 syllable names. Like really, like that makes any kind of sense, but you'll see quite a lot of those. So I'd like to take this moment while we have what looks like about 32 folks watching or listening through various options. If you're able to interact with us in any way, either in the comments on YouTube or by replying in Twitter or whatever the case may be, if you would please let us know your preference for the time of the show. Because we've been trying to start kind of earlier in the evening, usually around 9 o'clock, trying to make sure that we're not, starting anything off really too late at night for folks. But what I've been seeing is that we get more people participating, watching, and viewing later in the evening. So if your preference is to do the show later in the evening, please do comment, let us know, give us some feedback on that so that we can adapt to make sure that we're providing the content at the time that you have available to actually consume and view and participate with it. So um, we look forward to hearing from you on that kind of thing. We're always trying to make sure that we're staying on top of keeping things convenient for you.
Yeah. Have you noticed later at night? I don't remember doing them this late at night. It seems like to me that we got more participation earlier in the
Yeah,
day. I don't know.
I don't know. When we started at 9, we did not have quite a whole lot of folks playing or
We ain't got nobody now.
viewing that I could see.
So
Oh, is that
there's that.
because I'm showing people at the top. I'm showing 33.
Oh, well, before it seemed like there wasn't anybody, so maybe you're right. Maybe you're
Yeah, I
right.
mean, is that showing that up at the top next to live where it shows the
I ain't
viewers? Is
looking.
that what am I looking at that
I'm
right?
working on. I'm working on something. I haven't seen.
Okay.
I'm not looking. I got to. I got to brainstorm, and I'm just going with it. Sorry.
Okay. No,
So
there's
what
nothing
I'm
wrong with
doing?
that.
Can you see what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're putting some mountains into the Faded Kingdom.
I'm putting some very high spire type mountains, very jagged and rough, and the reason is, um, what I wanted to do is I wanted to close it off.
So its inaccessibility is probably partly why it faded, and also maybe what makes it so mysterious.
Something like that. Yeah, I wanted it to.
Okay.
Yeah,
What might be interesting is to make it, quite closed off except for one tiny passage through.
that's what I was
But
doing.
that passage, yeah,
Mhm.
but that passage could be, quite dangerous in its own right for something. Maybe it's got a bunch of vultures of enormous size that will, attempt to pick you off at or some other really scary, intimidating thing, that makes it just really hard to get through.
Mhm.
I also think it would be kind of cool to maybe it has like a really rough like river, like a river with a lot of rapids or something like that, where it's not necessarily that you're having to overcome um a monster or an enemy of something. You just have to pit yourself against the pitfalls of nature itself, either by climbing through a high mountain pass or um, you know, having to ride the rapids to get to where you're going. Well, you guys, I am gonna need to kind of hit the road, I think. Sorry to I hate to bail out, but I need to stretch my legs, get a
That's
snack,
enough for
stretch
tonight.
out and get some yeah, I'm feeling a wee bit tired, and if I try to continue, um things might get a little more interesting if I start dreaming out loud, but
Yeah, we're gonna stop here.
end up with
Thanks for
You end
hanging
up with
out.
dinosaurs eating bunny rabbits or something weird like that. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, we've been going
But thank
three
you.
over 3 hours, so
Yeah, yeah, it's a little too long.
oh, we got
Um,
somebody in the chat though. Just showed up a few minutes, about 5 minutes ago. It's always a big delay when people type, so they liked it. Very cool. Thank you, thank you. So yeah,
thank you for that. Appreciate the feedback. And as always, feel free to hit that like, subscribe, and share with your friends if you feel motivated to do so. We certainly appreciate it. And look forward to seeing you again. We're going to be doing these on a regular basis. So we might consider doing them a little bit later at night because we do seem to get more participation then. So maybe sometime little bit later, I don't know, 9:30, 10, something like that, but we will keep them coming. And if you ever miss a show, just tune in at the YouTube channel Campaigns and Conquests, and all everything that we do live is also going to be hosted there for you to view at a later time. And don't forget to keep in touch. We look forward to hearing from you, and as always, happy gaming.
bye bye.
Bye bye.